The opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised.
Oh man, there's got to be something to listen to on this dial.
This message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere. It is speculated that these objects are of extraterrestrial origin. The broadcast will quiet at this time for your safety.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays, as we light the void with Joe Root on Spaced Out Radio.
Ties we had formed, told all the lies to myself, while sleepwalking through it all.
You can follow Joe on Twitter at Lighting the Void, on Facebook at Lighting the Void, and you can call into tonight's show at 501-777-5631. You can also follow Joe at spacedoutradio.com.
We're sorry. Your call cannot be completed as done.
Sleepwalking with me. Sleepwalking with me.
Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Why don't you talk into the microphone? I got a backup mic right here. Check 1, 2. Testing, testing. Yeah, they both working, and guess what? They don't like no feedback. What's up?
Now, let's fire the show up and light the void on Spaced Out Saturdays with your host, Joe Root.
Good evening. I hope you're having a very good Saturday night. Welcome to Spaced Out Saturday. I am your host, Joe Root, Master of Ceremonies, and it's good to have you with us. It's good to be here on this March 31st on into April the 1st. Thank you all for joining us wherever you're listening from, across the web or on our affiliate stations. Speaking of our syndication, let's welcome in everyone listening on our affiliate stations. WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of the Walking Dead. Love those guys. We're also live on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We're also on spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, and syndicated with The Fringe FM, thefringe.fm. And we rock out every night with Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official sound of Spaced Out Radio. And if I sound bad, it's because I caught this pollen cold, because this stuff is everywhere. Also, you can check us out on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. And you can follow me on Twitter at Lighting the Void as well. You can subscribe to our new YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. Listen to us on iHeartRadio and USN. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download the shows from iTunes. And, of course, the site is spacedoutradio.com. And if you go to patreon.com, for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of Spaced Out Radio. Now, if you want to take part in the show, you can sign into one of our chat rooms on Spreaker, on the UPRN chat room, or on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, just go to hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and I'll get to your questions in there as well. And the call-in number for tonight is 501-777-5631. That should be pretty easy to remember, 501-777-5631. And if you head over to the website, for just $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. And as of right now, if you go to the Spaced Out Radio store, you can grab yourself a T-shirt, poster, or an SOR sticker. Now, we also have the Encounter online that deals with everything paranormal. You can check out the latest blog post there as well. And if you've had an experience you can't explain, fill out a SOR Sightlines report. And Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers and Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV also have some great video viewing there as well. Now, tonight has been incredibly crazy. It's hard to explain, but it's been a stressful day. And a lot of good news is happening with a lot of crazy. I can just tell you there's a lot of crazy energy going on. And so I wanted to get the perfect guest for you tonight because at the stroke of midnight, it'll be my birthday. And Andy, who listens to Spaced Out Radio, sent me a message saying, happy birthday. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not even midnight yet. And he said, well, it is where I'm at. So happy birthday. So I appreciate that, man. But tonight, for the very first time, we're going to have a strange Saturday with Butch Witkowski. This is going to be great. I can't believe this. So just in case you don't know who Butch Witkowski is, he's been an independent researcher since 1989 when he and 4 others witnessed a UFO of unbelievable size over a mountain in Tucson, Arizona. Now, Witkowski joined MUFON in 2007, giving him more access to cases and on-site investigations. He became a field investigator, state section director, and chief investigator for Pennsylvania MUFON. Witkowski was also made a member of the STAR team. Now, after relinquishing his position as chief investigator, he started the UFO Research Center in Pennsylvania. He brought together the best like-minded researchers and consultants he could find. Together, they pursue both historical and new cases, and, with a little luck, will resolve some cases of high strangeness. Now, with his own team, they're investigating still to this day, and you can check out the website, which is really awesome, by the way. I've been there for the past few hours. It's UFORCOP. It's UFORCOP.com. I might be I think it's probably saying that wrong, but Butch, tell me how to say the website again. I think I butchered that, brother.
UFORCOP.com.
That's right, UFORCOP.com. So I said it right. Butch, man, we were worried about you. We heard you got sick on Dave's show, and everybody is, really worried about you. You got a pretty big fan club.
Well, it was mainly due to stupidity. I got to admit that. But first of all, happy birthday, and it's a pleasure to be on with you guys on a Saturday night.
Oh, yeah.
What happened was I bought a home beginning of the month, and it needed some stuff done, as all homes do. And I just tore at it and pretty much went nonstop, not eating right, not getting any sleep, running here, running there, buying all new furniture, new appliances, TV set up, internet set up, getting my library ready to move down to there. And I just way overdid it. And at my age, I really shouldn't screw around like that. But some rest and good meals and my wife and friends, I'm good to go. I was down there yesterday and today, and I feel fine. But then again, I didn't stay there all day and all night. I came home, got a good meal, got a shower, got my coffee, got my gin and tonic, and I'm ready to rock.
Gin and tonic, right on. That's cool. What does it feel like when you get exhaustion, though? Like, what happened? Did it send you to the emergency room?
Yeah, because I had trouble even getting out of a chair.
Wow.
I just had no strength whatsoever. It was painful to lift my arms, to take a step, to get dressed. It was unbelievable. It was like I just had no energy whatsoever. And, of course, at my age, they worry about everything from, a heart attack to Bartholomew of the blowhole. And so everything was fine that way, health-wise. The doctor said, you're done. You're exhausted. You've had enough. You need to stop right now.
Right.
So that's what I did. And he gave me a little medication to help me relax and sleep. And he said, the house will be there next week. It'll be there the week after and many years after that. So he said, what are you doing?
Right. Don't sweat the small stuff, right? And it's all small stuff.
Yeah, just take your time and do what you got to do. And I got back to doing, my regular radio shows with the existence of strange things and interviews with folks there and cases that I've been working on. So I'm slowly getting back to where I was. I'm not putting so much time into the house because now it's just a matter of moving things. And I got a couple of friends of mine that stepped up and said, hey, we'll help. And, so should be good.
Now that comes on Radio Memphis, right? What time does that come on? Radio
Memphis, it comes on 11 o'clock on a Friday evening. 11 through 12, that's a 3-hour show. And we really have super guests.
Well, I don't know if you know this, Butch, but like I was telling you before the show, you got a pretty big fan club. You know, there's a lot of UFO investigative teams, paranormal investigative teams, and, you know, I was trying to get a guest for tonight, and Dave Scott came to me and he said, look, I'm talking to Butch. Would you be interested in talking to Butch Witkowski? And I was like, are you serious? Yeah, I'd be interested in talking to Butch Witkowski. And as soon as I put it on Facebook and Twitter, everybody loved it, man. So you got a huge fan club, so I can probably speak for everybody when to say that we're glad you're okay, man.
Thank you. You know, I've always enjoyed the few radio shows that I do because, you know, I'm really talking to people that are either investigators or researchers or new at it or been at it a long time. And, you know, there's not really ever any nonsense. It's always good, solid stuff. And I learn as much sometimes from them as they do from me. So I just feel real good to be back in the saddle here.
So what's been on your mind lately as far as investigations go? What's had your focus mainly?
My focus right now is an area in southwestern, or actually south central Pennsylvania. And everybody knows I'm not really a Bigfoot guy, but some of these cases are so profound that they beg more investigation. Now, this particular case, we 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago we went up to a town forum that they had in the area of these sightings, and there's been 3. And it was a very close-on sighting. I mean, the guy is cutting his grass on the farm lot, and this thing is like over on a bush line eating berries, and it stares at him, pays no attention really. He stares at it, and he just keeps staring. And it was really paying no mind to him at all, just pulling up big shots of berries and stuffing them in his face. And he got off the tractor to, you know, get a little closer, maybe make some kind of contact. He said the minute his toes touched the ground, that thing took off like a rocket. And then it was later on, I don't know if it was a few months or a little bit like that, something like that, where he and his wife were leaving the house and going up this long lane that goes back to their farm. And they came around the corner, and there stood one. And he didn't think it was the same one because the size was different. The other one was very large. This one was not quite as large. And it just stared at him and just kind of nonchalantly walked into the wooded area that borders his farm all the way around. So anyway, we go up to this old abandoned, it's not an abandoned church, it's a church that was a church, but it's no longer a church, now it's kind of a meeting house. And they put out some flyers about a month prior, just saying that, you know, if you had anything to report, we're going to have investigators here to talk about it. So there were investigators from Pennsylvania Bigfoot Research Society. Eric Altman was there, a Bigfoot researcher, myself, and a couple other folks. And this church, everybody figured like 20 people might show up, maybe.
Yeah.
153 showed up.
Wow.
There was no room to sit. The pews were taken up. All the chairs they had were used. People were lining the walls and out onto the front porch through the hallway. And a lot, they gathered like 9 brand new investigations. They picked up reports. And I think it was just the wrong time of year for us to actually do an investigation. It was way cold. It was like 21 degrees outside. And so what I guess everybody's planning on is going back when the weather warms up a bit more. But the areas where the creatures were sighted is very open and a really good contact as far as an investigative team going out. The one team could actually go less than maybe 300 or 400 feet to a barn where they could set up in a barn and watch that whole area of that field. And then where the other sighting took place, you could probably just set up maybe a quarter of a mile from that church in an empty lot, and then, you know, you'd cover that whole area. And now the 9 new ones they got, they're still plotting, So I know they're all in that area, but I don't know exactly where. So I don't know where the actual investigation would take place. But I would say that the way it's laid out down there, and I've never really done any investigations in that county, it's going to be quite interesting and a real opportunity with the right equipment to maybe get something.
Wow. Do you know, did they give you, I feel like a cop right now, but did they give you like a detailed description, or they just only caught a glimpse of it?
No, it was very detailed, very detailed. We had one of the tallest guys in the group walk down to the actual path that this thing took off into, and for the witness who was with us to tell us the size. And this guy's about, the investigator's maybe 6'1", 6'2", and he stood at that tree, and the witness kept saying, "Put your hand up higher, higher, higher." And when he got his hand up, he was almost tippy-toed touching the branch. He said his head bumped that branch. So, you're looking at probably 9 to 10 foot tall.
That's freaky. Have you ever caught anything that big on the FLIR, like that tall?
No. Mm-mm.
Never, huh?
No. We've upgraded to a couple new FLIRs that are more sophisticated. It's funny because I always thought I knew everything about FLIR. This thing came with a manual that looked like the Bible. And so I got that. I keep telling myself I got it down pat, but probably not.
Yeah.
But that's the only way we're going to ever prove. That's the only way we're ever going to prove anything, Joe. It's got to be on a FLIR.
Right. I mean, that's what I was going to ask you about, because I remember the last time I talked to you, I was sitting in for Dave, and I was kind of intimidated because you had been around this for so long, and it was a great conversation. I don't know if you remember, but I had a lot of fun. And someone emailed me and was like, "Hey, I'm surprised Butch didn't talk about FLIRs all night." And I got to thinking, I was like, well, let me think about this. Let me look at FLIRs and see why Butch is so fascinated. Well, there's only one reason why I think you talk about them a lot, or maybe that you talk about it as far as a focal point, is because, just like you say, it's the one thing that we could do. It's the one thing that we have, one of the instruments we have that is more credible than eyewitness account, because it's like scientific proof. You can't get better than that.
Yeah, and you can't hide from a FLIR. I don't care if you're out in the woods dressed in a black monkey suit, or if you are in your bedroom or driving down the road or in a parking lot in pitch black. I can see you. I can see you, and the camera, the FLIRs that we got now are FLIRs. I mean, that's the brand name FLIR. But the ones we got now will take a photograph, digital photograph, or they will take video. So I think it's the one has 6 gigs in it of video or photographs, and the other one I think has 3 or 4. But that's a lot. So if I have something in sight, I don't have to do anything but push the button and just keep it in line with what I'm looking at. And it's the best way that we can say that, okay, here is what we saw, here is what it looks like, here's the heat signature on it. I mean, because that's all a FLIR does. It picks out the heat signature. And everything throws off a signature, whether it's cold or hot. It doesn't matter. It throws off a signature. If you come in from outside in the snow and into a dark room, I can see you. If you come in from the beach into a dark room, I can see you. It doesn't make any difference. I guess the reason they're not used a lot is that, the FLIR enhances so much. I mean, and there's an expense. I mean, they're not cheap. There are a couple small pocket models you could buy that attach to a phone, and they work okay. But to get distance, and that's what you want, you're going to have to get up into the higher numbered FLIRs. But they are amazing.
I was watching that show, Butch. I don't know if you remember it, but it was like, I forget the name of it, but whereas these guys would go into mines and they would try to dig for gold veins and stuff, but they kept having hauntings. I know you guys. Oh, well, they had one where the guy took a FLIR into a, I guess that you could call it. It was some kind of factory that was on the river, and the guy held it up as they were looking around. They kept hearing stuff, and he held it up, and you could see the perfect outline of a person. Like, I mean, just a perfect outline of a person, and there was nothing there. And they did it. They kind of magnified it on the TV show to scare you, but when I looked at it, man, it was one of the freakiest things I've ever seen, because there's somebody there looking dead at you, but you can't see them with your own eyes, you know, but you know they're there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things, I think it's the program, or a television program, CSI, and they're inside of a building where a guy is messing around with computers. He's doing a lot of not so good stuff with computers, and he hears them come in, and he shuts the lights off. He shuts the power down, and the guy pulls out a FLIR, and he opens it up, and he's just looking around. And he sees him. Now, the guy doesn't see him, but he sees the guy. And I guess one of his guys starts to pull a gun. He says, "No, put the gun away." So this computer dude starts walking down this like little space, and he's on the FLIR. And when he gets close enough, this cop punches him right in the mouth. He's just laying there looking at him like, "What happened?" Because he don't see anybody, right? He's just out on the floor. But and a lot of paranormal folks are getting into FLIR. A lot.
They got one for your phone now too, I think. I don't know how good it is, but a camera that you can hook up to the edge of your smartphone.
Yeah, I have one of those that I carry in my bag that I can attach. I have an old Samsung Galaxy, 4 or 5, and what I did was I just took everything out of it, and I just used that to give me a portable FLIR without carrying around that big FLIR, or either one of the FLIRs. So I can keep that in my bag and just pull it out and attach that, and, you know, it's called a Seek. And they make 2 models. They make a regular job. They're a couple $100, and then they make one that's actually with a telephoto lens on it. Now, it's not the greatest telephoto lens. I mean, you're not going to look at a football field one end to the other, but you may get to the 30-yard line. And again, they're just a few $100, and you can get them on eBay. Last time I looked, I think I saw them for about $260. But they come with a waterproof case. I mean, a cover, everything, so you can throw it in your pocket as long as you got a cell phone with and the program you download right off the internet, or actually you can download it. They download the app from the App Store. Now the difference is the Android and the Google are 2 different types, so you got to tell them, you know, which one you have to download. So it'll download the Apple one, or it'll download the Android. And then they both make, they also make what they have a clip-on, and FLIR makes that. So, like, say if you have a Galaxy S6 Edge, it won't work. But if you have a Galaxy S6, which is just the regular without the Edge, I mean, it just clips onto the back, and you have a FLIR. And that's made by FLIR. And they're about $500 maybe.
Well,
but
I'd love to have one. That's all. That's the 2 toys I want now, is a FLIR and night vision goggles. And they're the 2 most expensive things you could get on the market, I think, right now.
Night vision, we have 3 of those, and they're all what are they called? ATR, I think, is the name. And but they work great. I mean, they're just fantastic. I love them. They were not that expensive. I think the first ones we bought one. The first one we bought was a monocle. The second one we bought was a binocular, and the third one we went back to a monocle. They were all under $800. Now, the last one wasn't. That was a little salty, but that's a Generation 3. The other 2 are Generation 2s. But they are really cool. I mean, when we were down at Brown Mountain looking for the Brown Mountain lights down there, we were looking through infrared and thermal imaging at the same time. And it's amazing how much you can gather just looking at that. Eric, ATN is what the word you're looking for, buddy. Thank you. That's all we have. That's all we use is ATN. It is, it's almost to the point now where even with binoculars anymore, and I always thought I was buying good binoculars, right. And then when I really looked and, you know, got into better binoculars, let's just say military-grade binoculars, and you'll pay out the butt for those. They're ridiculous.
They're worth it, though, right?
Oh, my God, yeah. I mean, if I have a clear night, and you only focus them one time, and then you never focus them again. That's the neat part about them. And on a clear night, I look at the moon, a bright moon, and I can count craters. And that's with a pair of binoculars.
Wow.
And there are a lot of brands on the market, but I just think that, instead of having tons of equipment in a backpack, if you're going out and you have infrared and you have a FLIR device and you have a radio and, a couple of other things you may need, you're good to go. But, I've got we have the big truck, which we supply. I can take 6 investigators out and everybody's got what I have, to use. And, but it's different now. I gave up trying to get stuff on a digital camera because no matter what you get in a digital camera, somebody's going to say you faked it.
Right, yeah. See, I've talked to a couple of other UFO researchers, and they've told me the same thing, because there's just too many flaws in digital. They even use old high 8 cameras with the little tapes in them and stuff.
Well, I have a Super 8 that I carry, and that's in case I get in some place where batteries keep going dead. And then I have, what make is that? I can't think anymore. It is it's a Nikon F Photomic 35 millimeter, and that's not digital. That's film. That's 35 millimeter film. And we always carry film cameras.
I feel like I'm talking to the Tim Allen of Paranormal Toys right now.
Yeah. But the thing about if you're especially if you're photographing evidence, okay, if you photograph it with a digital camera, somebody's going to say you screwed with it. But you're photographing with a Polaroid or an older Polaroid or a 35 millimeter camera. Not messing with the negatives that can't be seen. So, and a Polaroid, you can't screw with them a negative. Period. You'll just destroy it. And it depends a lot on what you're looking for, what type of investigation you're involved in. I mean, I would use different equipment for paranormal investigation as I would use for bipedal or Bigfoot investigation, or I would use for a UFO investigation. I mean, UFO investigation, that's basically, we have a Canon XL2, which has a super lens on it. And I can set that on a tripod and let it run. I can run it off the generator. I can run it off battery and just zoom it into infinity. And I can watch something go across the sky and have a really good photograph of it. And so it's the equipment you got to. It depends on what you're doing as to what you're going to do and the type of equipment you're going to use it for and how you're going to do it. We have surveillance cameras, and I don't recommend anybody buying those. They were way too expensive. I mean, if I had to do that again, I'd probably smack myself in the head with a hammer. But we bought 2 of them, and they take a photograph every 5 seconds. They're not like a game camera, although they do look like one. They're bigger. They're very quiet. There is no noise made from them at all, and they shoot in color and infrared, depending on whatever they see, whatever it sees, whether it's daylight or dark. If it's dark, it goes instantly to infrared. When it cuts light again, then it goes back to just regular color. But it takes a photograph every 5 seconds. So if you have something that's like you're watching a tree line, or you're watching a trail, and something goes across that trail, you may get 6 or 7 photographs of that, whatever it was crossing the trail, instead of 1. You'll get, they come out in, I have mine set for 6 photo strips. So when I load it into the computer and I pull it up, then I'm actually looking at strips that are dated and time-stamped. And it takes a lot of pictures in 24 hours, trust me. So you could be sitting in front of your computer for a week or two, but you have what the camera saw, whether it was a deer walking out of the woods or something in the sky that you were looking for. I mean, you have something, or strange events. We were at a farm where there were really weird things happening after an original or initial UFO sighting.
With the wildlife, you mean?
No, these are just entities. I don't know what they are. I really don't know, Joe. I mean, they're still there. They've been there since Christmas.
What do you mean?
They're in different locations. One's a little bigger than the other one. They were originally seen by the guy who made the report and who lives on that farm. And when I got called down the first time, it was for a UFO report. And it was snowing, it was cold, and I'm the moron that was standing out there in moccasins, with no socks on, because he gave me the call and I ran, because it's only 7 miles from my house. And he called me about not quite 3 weeks later and said that some strange things happened at the house while some folks were visiting. So I went down, talked to those folks, and everybody said the same thing, like they felt that they saw shadows moving around in the yard, almost like they were trying to surround them. So they got kind of freaked out and ran back in the house. And, of course, the owner is standing there at the door with a shotgun. And so we went out back. I said, well, why don't you just show me where these were? Well, I grabbed a FLIR.
Mm-hmm.
And we were walking out back. And when I put the FLIR up, I saw the first one instantly. And I said, so where exactly did you see this? And he said, right up on the edge of the barn. He said, I only saw it fleeting for a few minutes. He said, but maybe 2 minutes at the most, but it was there. I'm looking right at it. I'm not telling him nothing, right? I'm not going to give him any information because I don't want him to stop the story or embellish at this point. I know what I'm looking at, and he's describing exactly what I'm looking at. So I said, so any place else? And I start looking around with the FLIR, and I see a second one. And he said, well, the second one was bigger. And he says, that was down around, if you see the door at the barn, the big single door, he said it looked like it was standing in front of that, but it wasn't touching the ground, where the one up on the roof, it looked like it was touching the roof. And I'll tell you what they look like. They just look like a colored distortion. Best way I could describe it, if you were driving down a highway in Arizona, maybe I-10 on a very hot day, you see how the distortion comes from the heat off the concrete or the macadam. That's what they look like, but they have color to them. And then when I focused in on them to get the temperature, the outside temperature of the whatever it is, the distortion,
right,
was about 25 degrees. The inside temperature was about 15 to 20, somewhere in there. Then I went to the bigger one, and now that had moved a little bit to the left, but his outside temperature was about 30, and his inside temperature was about 18.
What were they shaped like, though? Were they shaped like a humanoid or just distorted?
Nope. They had no shape. It was just like, I always liken it to, if you were a Star Trek guy, when they always had something floating out in space, it had no shape or anything, but it was definitely there. It just almost looked like a blob of energy. That's what these look like. Now, we've been down there several times, and I was accompanied one time by Lon Strickler and his son Matt, and we saw them. And there's just a lot of weird things happen at that location. So what we decided to do was let it go for a few months. So I think I go back there on April, 28th or 29th. I'm going to see if they're still there. It is an indigenous area that used to be a Susquehannock tribal area all through that valley. But one of the things that was kind of weird, and I don't know if I brought this up on your show before or show with you before, but we had a large windstorm. As a matter of fact, the day Lon and I and his son were going to go meet there, we had a large windstorm we had to cancel. That was back last March. And, I mean, it did a hellacious amount of damage. It upset grain trucks, tractor trailers on their roofs, tore down barns, ripped up 50 old-growth trees. I mean, it was just weird. That farm, which was built in early 1800s, Never lost a roof tile. When I got there the next day and saw all the damage around it, in front of it, the barn, the property behind it, the property in front of it, across the road, a side of it, on both sides, totally destroyed. And I walked through a pile of leaves that I remember walking through alongside the house to go to the backyard, a pile of leaves that was still there. And that was in December.
How is that possible? I mean, unless somebody put a tarp over it, but even that wouldn't work in a windstorm like that.
Exactly. They shouldn't have been there. Hell, his house shouldn't have been there. It's the oldest house there. I mean, those other places in front and back and on the sides, they're fairly new. You know, I'd say the oldest one might be 20 or 30 years old. But his place is early 1800s, like 1830-something, I think he said it was built. And he never lost a roof shingle.
When you go out to these places, Butch, and you speak to these people, first off, I'm curious how they find out about you to begin with, right? I mean, I know you're popular as far as UFO investigations go, and probably one of the coolest websites I've ever seen in my life, by the way. I need to talk to you about that. But how do these people, I mean, do you have an ad in the paper, or do they hear about you through other people, like hearsay, or how do they get a hold of you?
I've asked a couple people about that, and they said they started researching, something strange in Pennsylvania, or strange things in Pennsylvania, or UFOs in Pennsylvania, that kind of stuff. And then, they'll do a Google search, or they might have seen something in the local newspaper, or they might have heard a radio show or a podcast or something like that. And that's it. That's how they do it.
Do they seem like that sometimes they're hard to open up and tell you, or do they just, because some of the stuff is crazy?
No, some are and some aren't. Some are leery. I mean, they're probably leery of me asking them questions, afraid that I'm going to run to the newspaper or have them on television the next morning. But I always just let them talk, and I answer their questions. And then, can we proceed? And if they say, yeah, we'll go. And if they say, nah, I'd rather not get into this, nice meeting you, have a nice day, goodbye.
I got you.
I've never pushed anybody as far as making a report. If they want to make the report, that's what I'm there for. If they have questions about what they're about to talk about, I might have the answers for them. But one of the things is that some folks it's not that they're hesitant, they want to get their story out, but it's not like they're talking to the cop that just pulled them over for speeding. I mean, they don't have a fear of that. But they seem, when it gets to the unknown or things that can't be explained, they get a little nervous. Like there's going to be some kind of retribution they're going to pay from somebody that they don't know that's going to pop out of the sky and bite them in the butt.
Yeah. You
just got to let it go and just kind of go by ear with it. And, you're looking at these people, so look, I don't think there's any researcher or investigator out there that can't tell me that they started talking to somebody and they knew right off the get-go it was a load of crap. Or at the minute they started talking, they knew it was the truth. I mean, you can tell. There's no way you can't tell. Nobody's that good at an actor. And you only got to catch them off on one question. Like they tell you, well, it was a full moon that particular day. And, you go sit in your truck or your car and you punch it up to see what the full moon was. You find out there hadn't been a full moon for like 12 days. So it's just, it's little things like that. But, if you treat them with respect and you're empathetic, you'll get your story. You'll get the information you need to proceed. And another thing that I will not do, I always get back to people. I never say I'm going to call you back and I don't call you back. Mm-hmm. If I find something out of the ordinary, or I find something that may be an answer to what your problem was or your question, you're going to get a call from me or an email. And in some cases, I've gone to their house to talk to them, to explain, what I found or what a historical issue might have happened on that property years ago. And that's just the way you got to conduct it. You got to conduct yourself with a little, panache, I guess. Don't go in there. You don't go in there like a bull in a china shop, and never call anybody a liar. Never. I mean, they're lying to you. You can prove they're lying, but you don't want to do that. You just say, okay,
thanks for the information. I got to go or something, right?
And just you always say to them, look, if anything else pops up, give me a yell.
Well,
and
I'm kind of curious about this, Butch. Have you because you've had some incredible experiences. I mean, from the start of the first UFO sighting you had that got you into this, and I believe the last time I talked to you, you were telling me about some pretty freaky stuff that had to do with dolls, I think. I don't know if you remember that or not, but...
yeah, I'm never going to forget that. That was my first paranormal experience. I wouldn't say investigation, experience.
But if you had to write a book right now, if Butch Witkowski had to write a book right now, what do you think it would be about? What would you want the world to know about the most?
I would say probably my thoughts now on the paranormal, ufology, and cryptozoology, which at this point, if you would have said this to me 2 years ago, I would have said, don't bother me with that stuff, is that I think they're all connected somehow. I don't know how yet, but I really believe that cryptozoology, the cryptids, the paranormal, I'm not talking about demon worship or anything like that, I'm talking about paranormal experiences, and ufology, abductions, things in the sky that we don't understand or we don't know what they are. I just have this thing in pretty much the last year, that somehow they're connected. Now, like I said, I have no idea how they're connected.
Sure.
I've kind of thrown some things up in the air in my head, and said like, maybe, I don't think so. But it's just a weird feeling, and I think more investigators should look at it with an open mind as far as seeing that there's a connection. I often said to not UFO guys, paranormal people, I said, you go in these houses out in the middle of nowhere, and the house is dark, there's nobody there but you guys, and, you got lights going on in the house, there's things walking around outside, inside, upside down, you hear all these weird things and see all these. I said, do you ever think of putting anybody outside to look up to see if there's anything strange happening in the sky at the same time? And one guy who really laughed at me and said, you're out of your mind. And I said, okay, whatever. But almost a year and a half after I said that to him, they were on a paranormal adventure, I guess you call it. He had a very old, well-known home that's abandoned in Pennsylvania, in central Pennsylvania. And there was nobody around. There's no houses near it. I mean, it's pretty much out in the woods, in a field. It's pretty run down, but it's still walkable inside. You just got to be careful. And as they pulled up, they were watching a light, like somebody walking with a small lantern or a small flashlight in the second floor, and then they would see it on the third floor. And it kept going from the left of the house to the right of the house, to the left of the house, to the right of the house, and then it would shut off. And the 3 members of the team went inside, and 2 members of the team stayed outside to monitor cameras that they had set up earlier in the day. And the one guy looked up and said, what the heck is that? And there was this strange glowing, not quite an orb. He described it as more egg-shaped, but not very large, maybe 20 feet, 15 feet in size. Mm-hmm. That was hovering above the house. And when that shape would go out, go dark, the lights would start going on in the house. When the lights would go off in the house, that thing would start glowing again. Was it like a dull orange color, though? He described it more as a red-orange, more red than orange, and it had what he described as like a silvery or white aura around it, but the aura wasn't very big, but it was very obvious it was there. And I saw the video, and he wanted to put it out on the internet. I said, you need to follow up your investigation before you go putting this out. Because, if you put this out, I said, right now, I know 10 guys that could fake this video. Right now, they could do it. So what you want to do is go back with more people or more equipment and, at different times of the year and start documenting a progression. If it's there all the time, if those lights are going on and off all the time, then you have something that you can come out with. And that's what he's in the process of doing. I believe they go, I think it's every other month or every 3 months they go out for a weekend. And they actually bought a camera that they train on at the sky, which they watch, religiously. And I said, just there's no reason to go out and run outside and say, hey, look what I found. I said, make sure you got what you got first, and then take it from there. And thankfully, I guess that's the way they're following up on it. They're going to see if they can get more information and more film to make it sound and look what it's supposed to be.
Well,
but I just got this thing that's all connected. I have no idea why I have that feeling, but it's just like, you have bipedals, both Bigfoot and, okay, we'll use Bigfoot first, where Bigfoot is seen and there are
orbs a lot of times in the sky, I've heard.
Flashes of light, too.
Yeah.
We have one report of a bipedal that was sort of encased in an aura of silver, but the guy said it could have been his headlights. And I said, well, did it just show on a portion of the creature or the whole creature? Well, he said it was like an outline of the creature. Well, that's different than just headlights. Headlights wouldn't do that. And the other one we had was one creature was seen running into the woods from watching some people that were just camping out. They saw a very bright flash, like a flash bulb, but the flash was yellow, bright yellow, like a gold yellow, bright yellow.
Like it was moving through time almost. I've seen some videos of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, could it all be connected? Yeah, it could be, I guess. But the hard part is going to be to prove that.
Mm-hmm.
We're almost going to have a video or something of something running away or hiding or where there's a flash of light and it's not there anymore, or the flashlight and it appears, one or the other.
Uh-huh.
And that's very hard stuff to get.
Can you
because people.
Can you record with the FLIRs, though? I didn't mean to step on you there, Butch, but can you record with these? I know you can record with a regular camera, but can you do it with a FLIR?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Mine has the model I bought, the first FLIR we got, is waterproof. That I wanted right off the get-go, and it has the capacity to take video, or if I push down the button for video, it'll just run video. If I turn that off and hit picture, then it'll take a picture just like you're hitting a trigger on a digital. And I always test them before I put them out. I'll get one of my guys to walk out in the dark or something like that, so I can watch him walking, and take still pictures to see if everything's proper and I have the right heat settings and temperature settings and all that.
Mm.
They are really worth it. I mean,
I bet. Yeah, I would love to see that. Maybe one day I'll be able to meet you in person so I could see some of that action. But I think you're right. We talk about this a lot. And I don't know if it's all connected through consciousness or it's all connected through quantum entanglement, but we have been discussing this, and you're not the only one that has that feeling. I mean, you can't explain it, but there's this feeling that all of it is starting to come together, and now there's this new movement. Obviously, you can see it because it's heavily marketed in this field of consciousness and ufology and put the paranormal, and they're it used to be two separate things, but now they're melding it all together. So,
well, one of the things I guess is that, and you got the Tom DeLonge thing going on right now, that's the Star Academy. Now you've got one half of the UFO researchers agreeing with what he's doing, and you got the other half of the researchers calling BS.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, look, this stuff has been tried in the past with disclosure and these wild stories of these secret organizations that have been doing it for many, 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 many years. And Eric just hit it right on the head. If enough people believe it, it becomes real.
That's true.
And it's just a fact. So you get a bunch of people that are putting in money and they believe it. They're just cranked. This is what they believe. Whether it's false, totally false, and you can prove it, they don't care. They're going to believe it's real. and they'll give you more money, and they'll do whatever they have to do to progress the cause. But it's I read a little bit about the Longs thing, and I'm on the side of, like, you need to give me a whole lot more proof than just your story.
Well, sure.
And I guess they pulled him off of it, and they put another guy on as the spokesperson. So I want to know why he got pulled off of it. Now the other spokesperson is on there. But I'll read it, across it, but I don't follow it.
Well, how important do you think it is in this day and age, especially now, and to play it down the middle? And when I say that, I mean, as soon as something comes out in this field, a video or whatever, not 10 or 20 minutes, everybody's picking a side immediately, just picking a side. And I'm like, can you guys, this is incredible. I think we should step back and research this, or, just for a little bit before it divides us on social media. And it's almost like, and I don't want to get too conspiratorial here, but it's almost like they know it's going to polarize us, and it kind of helps them out when that happens,
One thing I learned very early on is that disinformation and misinformation is there for a reason. It's been used by the government. It's been used by businesses, big companies. You can say whatever you want, and you can start to send people in the direction you want them to go, whether it's misinformation or the true information. And unfortunately, with ufology, the giggle factor still remains number one when it comes to ufology. And the paranormal folks, most people think that they're all crazy. They're all out of their minds. They're all being manipulated by the devil, hence the demonologist, which took off a couple of years ago, and now that's a big deal. But when it comes down to it, Joe, it's just plain old-fashioned hard research and investigation, and the only product you're looking for is the evidence and the proof. Because without evidence and proof, all you have is another story, which you could publish on any of the social media if you wanted.
Do you feel like that you're getting any closer to some real answers, or the mystery is getting greater? This is a question I've asked a lot of researchers in the past month. Do you feel like you're getting closer to truths, or are you opening up more questions?
Well, I always open up more questions, but at the same time, we've gained a lot of information on different cases that are, let's just put it this way, there's a 75% chance we could come up with an answer on a certain amount of cases. And then there's a certain amount of cases where you're never going to come up with an answer because either the case is too old, or the people that actually were witnesses are gone, they've passed on, or that property is no longer there. Just a lot of silly things. But as far as what we've gleaned over all these years, well, since 2009 when we started the group, is that we found some very, very strange stuff that can't be explained. And we've tried our darndest to debunk it, just take it apart, put it up. And we can't do it. And it's just not me, but, the people that are involved in the group, these people have all been investigating, some of them even a lot longer than me. And I've been at it, 29 years now. And there's people who've been at it 35, 40 years. And they know what they're doing. They're well known. They're out there. They contact me. I contact them. We're back and forth all the time. And that's another thing. If you don't have anybody you can share information with, or if I come up with a question, because I don't know everything, and my wife will tell you that, if let's just say I have a question about a murder case that might have had some kind of UFO connection or paranormal connection in another state. Well, I could get a hold of that researcher who's been there for many, many years. They'll know all about the case. They'll know what's going on. They'll know where it took place. And if it's something that's just popped up recently, they'll go to the scene and look at it. So there's not many groups you can do that with. And I think that's where we kind of have an edge when we do research. I've been involved in research where, this is kind of dumb. It may sound dumb, but it's true. I've been involved in research where I was not the researcher.
What do you mean by that?
I've been contacted by other groups to do background research or investigations on something they're working on to see what I could come up with. And I'm not involved in the case at all. I may get the initial reports, I may get some follow-up reports or some addendums to the report, maybe some photographs or video or whatever. And, it's like, Butch, did you ever see anything like this? Or is there anything in Pennsylvania or the areas that you delve into that may have had something like this? Now, I can take that and send that out to 20 different researchers in the group and ask them the same question. Have you ever seen or heard or know anything about something like this in your area or in your research as you've gone on through time? Has anything like this ever popped up? And sometimes we get a real hit, like, yeah. Now, this person that asked me may be in Northern Virginia, but I may have somebody in Texas or Oklahoma that said, yeah, I did. And they'll send me their information, and when you look at it side by side, they almost match verbatim. So that's pretty cool. So it just goes to show that, if you have the right people and you're dealing with the right people that you can depend on as far as getting their knowledge from them without a hassle or, getting in an argument.
Sure.
It pays off. That pays off big dividends in the end. It really does. And in one case in particular where it was, I don't remember where the guy, I think he was from Delaware, maybe Maryland area, and he had a case, and one of my folks in Florida had a case, but they had an answer for it. They found out what caused it, and we sent all the information back to him, and then he did his homework and went back and looked at everything, and sure as shooting, it was exactly the same thing. And it was actually the reflection off of a, I can't remember what they called them, but back in the day, and when I say that, I mean the 40s, 30s, 20s, turns, doorknobs were made out of prismatic glass. They had a lot of angles on them, Right. They some were shaped like round diamonds, but they had a lot of flat surfaces. And where this gentleman happened to be taking his photograph, okay, his camera was actually catching a reflection off of one of those doorknobs in another room across a hallway. But when it picked it up, it was like shooting it into the room he was working in.
I got you.
And they didn't know what it was.
Gotcha.
And this guy had the same thing happen in an old church.
Well,
and when they did it, he went back, he set up again where he was, and he, if it wouldn't be for Eric Markham, I would lose my mind. They're called faceted doorknobs.
Well, Butch, we gotta take a break. Here's the thing: I love getting into the specifics about investigations because you really enlighten us on this. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, but I promise you, I will go down the rabbit hole with Butch Witkowski, just like I did last time. Right after these words, don't go anywhere, guys.
The freedom to post what you want when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social media freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social media freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at UFOseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from UFO Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Looking for nighttime adventure? Old school radio that delves into everything out of the norm? Then check us out at Spaced Out Radio. This is Dave Scott. Every Monday through Friday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we're going to take you on a wild ride ranging from conspiracies to true crime and every ghost, alien, and Sasquatch story in between. We're always live and we're always interactive with you. So join us at spacedoutradio.com, where together we own the night.
The opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised. This is Spaced Out Saturdays with host Joe Roop. You can follow Joe on Twitter at Lighting the Void. And if you want to call into tonight's show, dial 501-777-5631. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, from the deep south of Arkansas, here is Spaced Out Saturday host Joe Roop.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Saturday. Thank you, Bob. I am your host, Joe Roop. We are here with Butch Witkowski. We're about to go down the rabbit hole with the man himself. Don't forget, Spaced Out Radio is here for you 7 nights a week. Also, I want to thank everybody over at the Fringe FM and my team, Everett, Tessa, Dave, and Dave Cruz. I love each and every one of you guys. Have really helped me get through this past week. It's been an incredible ride. So I just wanted to give you guys a shout out real quick. The call-in number is 501-777-5631 if you want to call in. And Butch, I just want to tell you, thank you again for coming on Space Out Saturday, man. For a birthday, that's an odd number. I think I'm turning 36. I don't even know how old I am, but I couldn't have picked a better person to talk to on my birthday than you, man.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure. Always a pleasure talking with you guys.
Yeah, it's fun. And last time when I talked to you, I got lucky because I had to host for Dave, and I was hoping I met your standards, and I think I did. But we talked about everything, and I think the one thing that really freaked me out after that discussion was the mutilations and stuff, the investigations that you've done on that. Are you still involved with that at all, or is there any more stuff coming up?
No, there have been some newer reports, but they've been over in England, and there are a couple really good researchers over here working on that. I did speak with the lawyer for the Egyptian gentleman that was blamed for the mutilations there outside of Cairo, but he's doing well. The man's retarded. He's got the IQ of a 5-year-old, and he's in his 40s now. He's, I guess, 50s, early 50s. And she really got him off. Now, he still has to, wherever he leaves the house, he has to be under guard of either a police officer, and it doesn't matter if he's going to the mosque or he's going to shopping. There has to be a police officer with him. That was part of the plea agreement. But he was not found guilty of any of the murders or the mutilations. And he's doing okay. And I asked her if there were any more things popping up, and she says, well, yeah and no. She says, because we don't know now, because with ISIS, what they do to people, you can't tell if it's a mutilation or just those guys out for a fun afternoon with their knives. And, but, yeah, there are some new ones. They're over in England. Usually, well, not usually, but all of them have been on the outskirts of small shires and stuff. I think, although the cattle mutilations have sort of simmered down for a while, they started picking up about 2 months ago in the same area, the Four Corners area of the country. I think it's just a matter of time until they come across another human mute. If they're still going on over in England, I mean, they're probably going on all over the world. But again, still the best case is the Guadaparanga Dam in Brazil. I mean, that case is pristine. You had not only the police on the scene almost instantly, but the people that found the body didn't touch it. They didn't even go near it. They stayed in the boat. And the police were wise enough to bring in a forensic team right off the get-go. So there's great photographs. The autopsy is very well documented. And, when you look at that autopsy report and you look at a report of an animal, a necropsy that was done maybe on a cow, they're identical. I mean, the holes are the same size. What's missing is the same. It's really weird. That whole thing is weird. So I always said that, everybody says, well, these our space brethren are benevolent. They're going to come take care of cancer and the common cold and everything else. And I've always said from the very beginning, I think they're malevolent. I think when they do show up, bad things happen. I never saw a story where anything good happened. I mean, did you ever hear of a UFO guy getting out of his ship and walking over and handing you a winning lottery ticket?
No.
No. And more likely he left you with some kind of radiation burns or something like that, or in a coma, or, you had to be committed because, you lost your mind. So I don't see him as benevolent. People always say, well, what if they get real close when they're landing or they're overhead and they start getting closer? I always tell them, run. Run like hell. Get out of there. What do you care what's going on? Get out of there.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, why would you stand there and let a ship, a large ship, like hover over your head and then start to lower itself toward you, and then stand there and stare at it. Now, granted, it's something you probably don't see every day, but I'm not going to stand there and look at it. I'm getting out of Dodge fast.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Travis Walton, if you read his book, Fire in the Sky, will pretty much attest to that he'll tell you it was a mistake, And by the way, when the ship started making this crazy noise, he'd started regretting it as soon as that started happening, and he just couldn't get away from it fast enough.
Yeah. And, abduction cases are tough because, everybody's read the books on abduction. So they all have an idea of what takes place during abduction, how it happens, and before you know it, they're relating a story to you that you can go home and find in any book that you have on your shelf on abductions, because it's a mindset. They don't think it's sleep deprivation or sleep paralysis. They think they were abducted, and they'll swear to their grave that's what happened. But if you look at their story and you open page whatever of whoever's book on abduction, there's the story. So it's like a mindset. It gets implanted, and they just take it to the nth and bring it out like it happened. Then there's cases where, you just stand there and you read it and you talk to the people and you're at the scene and you just shake your head. You go, wow. Like there's a 3-fingered handprint on the window. Where in the hell did that come from?
Right. Well, speaking of that, what other things do you I remember when I went to the conference in the Ozark UFO conference, I looked at some of their manuals and how they conduct investigations, and it was very police-like, I guess you could say. And that intrigued me because I wanted to learn how to do a proper investigation. Now, with you have been in MUFON, is that something that you carried down into your team, or what do you do different, do you think, than the other investigative groups do?
I carried my police background into MUFON, and then, when I left MUFON, I just decided that I wanted to do it forensically, just like I would have done anything else when I was a police officer. So, and a lot of the people, like 6 of our people are police officers. 2 are retired, the other 4 are active. So, look, I carry a fingerprint kit in the truck. And people say, you're a ufologist, what do you carry a fingerprint kit for? Well, let's just say I find a 3-fingered print on a window, and it's very odd and it's very weird looking, and, I can't see any dermal ridges or anything like that. Wouldn't you think I'd want to take a sample of that? We carry DNA in the DNA kits in the truck. So if I find something that's seen that's just not kosher to me, whether it's blood or fluid or whatever, I can take a DNA sample right there. So we carry stuff. There's even a dissection kit in the truck. Like if I want to take a sliver of something that I found or a bone, anything like that, you got to do it. You got to do it forensically. Just doing it off the cuff doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Like, you just ate a ham and cheese sandwich out of a baggie, and you find hair samples or whatever else you find, and you throw it in the same sandwich bag. Well, you can kiss that goodbye.
Yeah, it's all. What do you call it? Tampered with. It's done, right?
Yeah, it's done. It's just junk. Because the only thing they're going to pull up is your ham sandwich.
Well,
so
yeah, I can see your point.
Just following normal procedure, chain of custody, and everything else, and treating everything like it could be nothing, but you still want to treat it as this is the golden goose. This is it. This is the evidence I need. It may turn out to be nothing, but you want to treat it like it is. And then if you contaminate something, like I see it all the time. I see it on YouTube. I've seen it in the field with other groups that I've been around, where they go and they start taking what they think is good evidence, no gloves, no tweezers, no nothing. They just reach their big paw down there and pick it up, and then they pass it around to everybody else. Well, we now got all your DNA, but we didn't get anything out of that. So I always tell people, if you're going to do it, look, go to the library, or get on Google and punch up police investigations and how to conduct them. and it'll tell you how to do it. It'll tell you what you need. I mean, it's nothing big. I mean, you can get along with a paper, new paper bag, new bag, new jars, plastic jars, new, not old, ball jars, the small ball jars. They work great. I have, and they keep samples for a long time.
Right.
And they
I wonder if you've got your own investigation, like your own evidence locker room. I bet you do, don't you?
I will in my life. No, the house I bought now is much bigger than what I'm in now. So instead of having my den and everything all in one room, in my office, I will have a separate office, and I will have a separate library, and I will also have a separate room to do research in, where I'll have my microscope set up and tables and all that stuff to look at evidence, and my photographic evidence stuff on one computer instead of two other computers.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a whole lot easier to get stuff done.
So with your background, I want to go over some scenarios here with you, just because I'm curious. And I think we might have done this before, but I want to do it in remembrance, okay? I'm in the woods with you, with Butch. We're conducting an investigation. We roll up on a Sasquatch. We happen to capture this thing, right? What is your recommendation? What do we do next? We contact the police? Do we go to the news? Do we not tell anybody? What do we do?
If we captured him and he's contained, I would have every newspaper in 100 miles on its way. And
before the police?
The police would be the last people I call.
Why?
Because they're the ones that will say, we're going to take this. And off they go. And you're standing there with news people coming like, well, where's this creature you captured? Oh, the police took it. Oh, really? Now you look like a real baboon, So you want to get as much media there as you can, because even though probably 50% of them will probably say they didn't see anything, you will have 50% that will start taking pictures and video and everything else. And and if it's a body, right? Let's just say you and I are in the woods and we walk around and we find a body. What would you do with it then? I'd put it in a body bag in the truck, and I'd take it to a state lab, a biolab.
Before you contacted the police?
Mm-hmm. Sure, it's an animal. It's not a human being.
Sure, okay, I see where you're going.
So, I mean, it could have died natural, old age, could have been run over by a bus, who knows, but it's there. It doesn't look like anything human to me. They would have to prove that I thought it was human. Now, I wouldn't say that. I don't know if it's human. I mean, you've got a lot of people out there to say, yeah, well, there's human DNA in Bigfoot. Well, now, how do you know that? Because, first of all, you don't have a control subject, which means you have to have another Bigfoot that you took DNA from. So since they never got a Bigfoot, they don't have any DNA. And when Melba Ketchum done her thing, I mean, that went to one of the most premier labs in the world in Australia or New Zealand, one or the other. And they came up with, there was dog hair in it, bear hair, bear scat, berries, parts of a squirrel. I mean, everything but a Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you got to do.
The reason why I ask you this is because sometimes I'm a bit of a skeptic about these things. And I would figure that if I had an experience out of all of these people that have had experiences, they would try to capitalize off of it, make a lot of money, in which I believe some people are making tons of money off their so-called experiences they've had, and have even got masses of followers behind them. But with all of the reports there's been, somebody is not, either we're not doing something right to get it out to the public, or there's just a whole lot of stuff out there that's just plain BS,
Well, I'm going to say 99.9% of it's BS, because nobody has brought in, 51 years now with Bigfoot? Nobody has brought, with all these thousands of researchers out there, nobody's brought in one credible piece of evidence. A footprint is not evidence. If just say you have a size 12 foot and you're barefoot, but you step in a mud, you now have a 14-inch foot that's 6 inches wide because you pushed the mud out from the pressure of your foot.
Yeah, and somebody with really big feet steps in the mud. My thing is, though, and people, I've heard a lot of explanations about this, Butch, but why just a one footprint?
Yeah.
It's just one all the time.
It's always intrigued me. You know, they'll march through 10 acres of ground or 10 miles of dirt road, and they find one footprint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
And it's usually the right print, not the left.
Now, I'm not saying Bigfoot and Dogmen aren't real. That's not what I'm saying at all. But, I mean, personally, there's not too many people out there that have investigated this stuff more than you have. There's paranormal investigative teams all over. But out of the 29 years you've been doing this, how many encounters have you had?
Personal encounters or just encounters that I investigated?
Well, just you running into either a ship. When I say encounters, that means you saw a ship, a Sasquatch, or a cryptid, or an alien, or something. Let's just keep it in ufology Sasquatch for now.
Okay, ufology. Ufology, I've seen 16 so far. I've never been alone, which makes me good for my sanity. I've been in the company of, I think the least amount of people I was in the company of was my chief investigator and a state trooper. The most I've been in the company of was 8 people, all saw the same thing at the same time. And what we saw was also reported in northern Pennsylvania by one of my researchers when I was still with MUFON. And he wanted to know who made the report out that he was just looking at, and I said, I did. He said, really? I said, yeah. I said, look at the bottom, my initials are there. And he looked, and he says, well, hit enter and take it to the next page. He went to the next page, and there was a mirror image of my report from two people that were actually 77 miles, I believe, from my location where I saw it. And they described the exact same thing, and size, color, shape, what it did, how it acted. And it was just a husband and wife unloading groceries out of their station wagon.
So that's what I love about you, Butch. Pure honesty. You know, you're not about sensationalism. You just want to get to the truth, don't you?
Yep. That's all it's about. Look, I'm a skeptical believer. I guess that's the best way I could describe myself.
Okay.
And I'll listen to any story. I will listen to anybody's story about anything. But at the same time, while I'm listening to that story, I'm looking for not only the truth, but I'm looking for where I can go with it now. How far is this person going to go with this story before they just kind of clam up? The ones that have always intrigued me as far as how I feel about stepping into an investigation of any type is when you have a grown man. I'm 6'1", I weigh 260.
Big boy.
And you take a man bigger than me, and he's standing there shaking and crying while he's telling you what he saw. That's a little hard to fake. That he needs to sit down in the truck, because if he don't sit down, he's going to pass out. And we got to give him water and talk to him and bring him back. And that's happened twice now. And they were both bipedal sightings.
It freaked him out that bad, huh? Wow.
Yep. This guy, till this day, and I've talked to him face to face. I mean, I keep in contact with him. He keeps in contact with me. He's a great guy, family guy. And he keeps saying to me, he said, Butch, he said, it's not a bipedal. I said, well, that's the name I gave it because I don't have a better name. He said, no, there is a name for it. I said, okay, what is that name? He said, it's a friggin' werewolf, boy. A friggin' werewolf. That's what it is, a werewolf. I said, did it have clothes on? He went, no, I'm not talking about that kind of werewolf. We're not talking about Hollywood werewolf. This thing looked like a man-beast. It had features of a man, like the muscular structure, the arms, the long arms, the hands with claws, not paws, the muscular legs, the thin waist, the massive chest, the huge head, and it just goes on and on and on. I'm like, okay. But, when a guy starts shaking, that size, starts shaking and crying, he's just telling you a story. It's not like I'm standing there holding him at gunpoint. Mm-hmm. He's just standing there in a parking lot telling me a story, and he's losing it. And that's happened twice.
Do they ever say that they felt like an evil presence around these things? Obviously, if he's shaking, he had to have felt something like that.
Every case out of the 20, what do we have, 26, 27? I think 27. Out of every case, everybody says the same thing. If I don't leave, if I don't get out of here, I'm going to die. And in 4 of those cases, we had people that had high-powered guns in their hand, not on their hip, in their hand, rifles, and, that could blow away a bear. And it was already implanted in their head. Don't shoot or this is going to go bad really quick.
Like you're just going to piss it off and then it's really going to get you.
Yeah.
That's what I'd think too.
And it shows no fear. That's another thing. I mean, people say, if you see a Bigfoot and if it sees you, it'll run off and hide. This thing don't run. It stands its ground. It's not hiding. It's going to stand there and stare. And now, whether it's putting that thought in your head that if you keep screwing around with that gun, you're going to die, or if you keep sticking around here, you're going to die, or whatever the reason you stick around, you're going to die. I mean, that sticks in people. And we had a guy in a tree stand, high-powered 30-06, deer hunting. And the thing got with it and, caught him downwind, sniffing. And it was about 100 yards out, and it walked right up to the base of the tree stand and sat there and growled at him. And all he could think of was, this thing's going to come up the tree and get me. Now, he's got this gun in his hand. All he's got to do is take the safety off and pull the trigger. And he said, something in my mind just don't do it. Don't even think about it. Because if you do it, you're going to die. And he sat in that tree stand for like 4 hours after it left, before he got down out of that tree stand, ran to his truck, got in his truck, and went to the Pennsylvania Game Commission office, which was a couple mile up the road, and told them what happened. And you know what they said to him? Yeah, we've been having trouble with big dogs around here.
Big dogs, right.
He said, buddy, this was no dog. He said, it was no dog, it was no coyote, it was no coy wolf, it was no wolf. He said, I just told you what it looked like. And they said, yeah, well, we'll look into it. Oh, of course. Because if anything like that would ever be shot or captured or anything like that, or picture taken of it, there would be, nobody would go into the woods. They just wouldn't.
That is a really good question. Dennis put in the chat room, wants to know if Butch believes that they emit some sort of fear pheromone. Now, before you answer that, I can tell you that I've had dreams about this. Joe Rogan himself talked about a dream that he had where he was some kind of wolf, and maybe it was just a regular wolf or a dog man or whatever, where he was running through the woods. And I'd like to think, and he said he could smell the fear on people. Mm-hmm. Dennis is wanting to know, do you think that they do they emit some sort of fear pheromone, kind of like I've been around certain animals in the woods and I just immediately have fear, and I couldn't tell you why. Maybe it's a reaction. I don't know.
Well, yeah. They could, or are they just putting something in your mind? Are they implanting something into your psyche that says, you screw around with that gun and I'm going to eat you alive. I'm just going to tear you up.
That's probably it. That probably that deep stare, like, you better make sure I'm all the way dead when you shoot me. I'm not trying to make light of the situation, but it just reminds me of that clip in that movie.
Now, the very last case we had, I know I didn't discuss this with you before because this is kind of a recent case, where we had a guy call up, and he is a game commission, a federal game commission officer. So he takes care of a federal park, and he and his buddy, and he's armed. He's got a .40 Glock on his hip. But they went out to look at a walking lane that was just put in one of the parks. And all they did was they, got a dozer in there and they dozed out, about the width of a car, a lane that goes into the woods and kind of makes a circle and comes back out again. Okay. And it was halfway done. He wanted to go see how it was progressing. So him and his buddy get there. They park the truck down the parking lot, which is just a big parking lot, kind of dug out into the side of a hill. And they walk up the steps, and they get on the track, and they start walking down through. And the minute he hits the track, he said, I can hear something walking to my right. And he went, Probably a deer, probably a bear. I mean, he's grown up in the woods. He works for the government in the woods for a long time. And he just kept walking, and it was still behind him, but it sounded heavier than a deer. So he got a little concerned that it might have been a bear, so he was more cautious. You know, he kept looking over his shoulder, but he didn't see nothing. Although he heard it, he didn't see it. So they get to the end of the track, which is now about a quarter of a mile in, and that's where the construction stops. And, you know, he's telling his buddy, yeah, it looks good, it's pretty neat, you know, kids will love this thing, you know, it's just a walk around. And so he said they start to go back, and now this thing is, as they're walking back, it's on the right side again, following them, but it's much heavier. The footsteps are much heavier. And he can hear twigs breaking and, you know, stuff and stuff rustling, carrying on. So he stops, and he's about a couple 100 feet away from the steps that go down in the parking lot. And he turns around, and there it stands, right in the middle of the track.
Looking at him, too, wasn't it? Staring at him, I bet.
His description, 8 to 10 foot tall, large wolf head, massive chest, long arms with hands and claws, thin-waisted, muscular legs and hock legs like a dog, and glowing yellow eyes staring right at him. He said, I had no inclination whatsoever to draw that weapon. He said, all I wanted to do was get back to that truck, and my buddy and I got back to the truck quick. When they get back to the truck, he never heard it following them anymore, so he figured it didn't follow him. When they get back to the truck, as they're walking toward the truck, they look up on the top of the ridge where this parking lot was pulled out, dug out. Along the tree line, there it stood staring at them.
Jesus. Butch, I got to tell you, and I know, you know, you've got experience being an officer of the law, and I've grew up in the woods myself, and I've had some experiences where I had to save my own life, especially with a pack of wild hogs one time in the bottoms down here in Hurricane Creek, or not Hurricane, but Greer's Ferry. My inclination was to pull my sidearm and just keep going until I had no bullets left. That was a straight fear reaction. I don't know why. This thing has to have some kind of massive fear control. I mean, wouldn't you do the same?
I thought about that many times because we do carry non-lethal weapons. And, I mean, they're 68 caliber, and they will hurt you. Depending on what load we have on them, they can hurt you really bad. They could kill you if they hit you in the forehead. I don't know. I honestly thought about that many times because a lot of times when we're out, and especially when dark's approaching, we'll get one of the rifles out, and I'll strap on one of the pistols, and one of my guys will strap on another pistol, and, we'll arm everything, but that's, basically when I'm doing that, I'm thinking, well, it could be a coy wolf bumping around somewhere or something else. But honestly, when I thought about coming face-to-face with one of those, that gun would probably stay holstered. I'd probably do the same thing. Just, okay, it's been nice meeting you. I'm out of here. Get back to the truck and leave.
Right. It does seem like Eric is right in the Spreaker chat. Does it seem like all of these sightings, for some reason, these creatures don't pursue or they don't initiate conflict? They just instill fear and move on.
They, in every case, whether it was in the woods or the edge of the woods or along a road, they see you. They know you see it. And they keep their eyes on you at all times. They do not stray from looking at you. When one guy and his buddy actually drove past one, they got out in the left-hand lane, way out in the left-hand lane, that they were almost hitting the guardrails on the left-hand side of the highway to get around it because it looked like it was sitting there chewing on a deer carcass, and then it stood up, and it was full headlight view when he hit it with high beams. He saw what it was. He said as they drove past, it never took its eyes off them. It just kept watching them. Same thing with the guys that had guns. The one fellow's out hunting birds. He's in a swamp area in a state park, and he's got a 12-gauge Magnum. It's loaded, and he runs into one that's in a bunch of mountain laurel, and he said he was only 20 feet away, and it just kept staring at his face and never took its eyes off him, and he didn't take its eyes off it. And I said, did you have any consciousness to pull the trigger?
Yeah,
and
pull the weapon, man.
He said, no way. He said, I'd have done that. I did. He said, they never would have found me. He said he might have found my truck and the gun, but I would have been gone. I said, what exactly kind of fear did you have that would happen? He said, it only had to take 1 or 2 steps that would have been on me. There was nothing I would have been able to do. I went, okay.
What do the police do, though? I mean, when you were an officer, were there reports of these? I mean, I know there was, but were there real reports? Let's say someone reported to you something like this, and you're a police officer. Do they just throw it in some file somewhere and say, "No, that's crazy," and don't do anything about it?
Probably take you in for a sobriety test.
Really? Okay. Could end up in a hospital too, probably.
Yeah, same thing with UFOs. I mean, now officers here where I live, they've come to the house already with UFO stuff, and I've given them the answer, and I said, well, we had sighting reports in that particular area. Would you like a copy of them? Yeah. So they take that, and they might put it on their initial report, but that's as far as they're going to go with it.
Man, Dark Waters has a story about, and I forget where this place is, but it was a story, and you may have heard it, on an old farm where they had gotten into a battle that lasted years long with these dogmen or creatures. And if you go back to the beginning of the story, the reason what sends chills up my spine about this is hearing you talk about that grown man cry like that. The same thing happened to this man's grandfather because they had been battling these things for so long that they just kind of give up. And it was initiated by a shot. It wasn't the dogmen or wolfmen or whatever initiated it. It was them clipping one of the ears of one of them, and it was on after that.
Well, when I got the first report, I was I was super skeptical. Because, first of all, I didn't understand why I got the report, because there's nothing that says I do cryptozoology. When I got that report, in contact with a guy, and he's telling me all this stuff that he was, he went back with the next day with guns and his buddies, and they all got the same feeling at the same time, get out of here, you're going to die, and that whole scenario. And then we got the second report. And then we got a third report. And these were all within a matter of 4 weeks. And everybody's telling me the same story. Now, these guys don't even live anywhere near each other. One guy's in the western part of the state, the other guy's in north central, and the other guy's, a little more east. But they're describing the same thing. So I thought, okay, I'm going to run with this, and I'm going to see what I can come up with. So I did background research, the whole thing, newspaper clippings, library, all that stuff. And I found a report in it was called the Erie Gazette, I believe, long defunct, in 1868. It was like the local newspaper, where a farmer was having problems with something killing his sheep. And I guess he went out looking for it one day, and he actually found it. And he described almost verbatim of what the reports were I was getting. This is 1868. Wow. So people always say to me, well, what exactly do you think it is? Now, of course, I can't say I know what it is, but I will tell you this. I do believe that it is a relic. It's been around for a long, long time, and it's going to be a long, long time.
Does it make you wonder, though, if they're like, this is wild, I know, but skinwalkers, things that turn into different things, we've heard about these stories, right? But I'm trying to think about stuff in my head. Why something of that nature, it's a meat eater, it's crazy, why it always just kind of never attacks, never really hurts you unless you try to hurt it. Maybe at one time they were human. I know that's a wild notion, but I'm trying to think of any other reason why they wouldn't.
Well, look, if even if I can't get a flare on them, if I found some bones, let's just say a deer all chewed up, tore up, more than would actually be tore up. Usually, if it's coyotes or coy wolves or wolf, they go for the soft belly, the internals. Yeah. But if I get something like claw marks on it, it's ripped and torn up, and I want to look at the bones, and I want to look at the serrations, maybe teeth marks, because I have a skull of a real gray wolf in the truck, a real skull. So I know how wide a real skull teeth mark should be. Okay? Plus I have a wolf sanctuary 5 miles from my house. So I've seen these wolves. I've been up close to them. And I I got a really good idea of how that bite pattern should be. So now let's just say I get a leg bone where the bite pattern is way wider than what it should be. So instead of having maybe a 4.5 inch bite pattern, it now has a 6 or 7 or 8 inch bite pattern. Then what am I dealing with?
Dealing with something supernatural, in my opinion, or
Sure.
a genetic. There are genetic flukes, though. I've seen pit bulls that were the size of men. Men that was a genetic fluke, though.
Yeah, but now I got bones in my truck right now that I brought back from this last sighting that I found. I mean, this last case we went on up in southern Pennsylvania, and I looked at them. Now the one was definitely probably a possum or not a squirrel, but a possum or raccoon or something like that, because the scratches on the bone and the bite marks are just 1.5 inches maybe wide. And then up at the wolf sanctuary, I asked the owner up there if, could he get me a bone, because they feed them every day. They give them beef and horse meat, and they give them the whole, they throw the whole leg in there.
Uh-huh.
And I said, you save me one that I could just take pictures of the bite marks or the scratches, from the claws while they're eating, which he did. They're very deep, and they're very, in other words, when they bite something to pull away the meat, they will actually, with their paws, they'll push that bone away from them while it's in their mouth. So the serrations from the teeth, are, especially the canines, are very noticeable. I mean, they go, they're just shy of getting into the marrow, is what they're trying to get to anyway. So I'm hoping that, because whenever we see dead animal in the woods, we're all over it. I photograph it. I try to get bones, samples, whatever I can get, and I don't care what kind of shape it's in. But when you see a hide, and that would be something really. If you found a hide where you saw like 4 claw marks that actually ripped down through the hide, maybe from the neck down into the hind quarters, there ain't nothing out in the woods I know of will do that.
No,
a bear won't do that. A bear will kill it, and a bear will drag it off and eat it. It's not going to screw around wasting time scratching at it. But there is one case, and we're still working on it, and there's not a whole lot I can say about it with this exception, that a gentleman stopped at a grocery store, like a 7-Eleven, Turkey Hill, something like that, up in northern Pennsylvania, and a game commission officer came in, and on the back of his truck there's a trailer, and he had a full-size moose back there. And so he's just standing there looking at the moose, and he just looking at it, and he said, this moose's throat was slit from almost ear to ear and right down to the bone.
Like a clean cut?
Absolutely a clean cut, like a razor blade. So when the game commission guy came out and he saw him standing there, he said, can I help you? And he says, well, that's weird. What happened? You run into a wire or something? And he said, we don't know what happened. He said, but whatever it was strong. And he pulls up a box out of the back, and inside the box is a tracking device, a collar. That collar's made out of Kevlar. And, so it don't rip or tear or get ripped off when the animal's out and about. And it has, it's about 2 inches wide. It's almost a 1/4 inch thick. And then there's this device on it, a tracking device, which was all tore up. And it was also cut in half.
What?
So it went through the Kevlar collar and then went through the neck.
See, now that makes me not want to go camping in Arkansas anymore. All those years I went camping as a kid. I've had people tell me I wouldn't go camping. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. But the more I think about it, the probability of an encounter like this is very slim, isn't it? Still to this day. Or do you think?
Well, there was a case, and I investigated this case. It was up in North Dakota, where a guy called, actually emailed me, and then he gave me a phone number to call. I called him. that night, and he related this story to me, and I just found it so unbelievable. I said, I really need to see a picture of this, and which he did. But he said that his girlfriend is an equestrian rider, and she rides in a ring, indoor ring. And he said there's no place in this indoor ring where there's anything sticking out that would hurt a rider or an animal. I mean, they're just smooth wooden walls with a dirt floor. He said part clay, part hay, part this, but just to ride your horse out of the weather. And the jumps, the jumps are portable, so there were no jumps set up when she was in there riding around. And she stopped in the middle of the ring, and she went to the tack room to get a piece of something for the horse, a piece of tack that she wanted to try on the horse, which was a matter of being away from that horse for approximately, and he walked it off himself at a standard pace, no running or anything else, back, opened up the box, pulled out the tack, walked back to the horse. And when she gets back to the horse is standing there, the reins are laying on the ground, the horse never moved an inch, not an inch. The left side of the horse's face is surgically, and I mean surgically, like razor cut, from the top of his jawbone down to his chin, and his lower jawbone is missing.
What?
And I have that photograph.
What was your first thought when you saw that?
When I saw that first time, I thought a mutilation.
Right.
Because, first of all, my wife was an equestrian rider for the U.S. equestrian team. If you smack a horse hard enough, he'll get pissed. He'll whine. He'll bitch. This thing actually had to stand there while somebody removed its lower left jaw.
That just sounds evil.
Never said a word. She said she never heard the horse whinny or cry or anything like that. Nothing. And when she got back, she walked into the ring and she looked at the horse. He was right where he was. When she walked around to the other side to get on the horse is when she saw the deal, right? So the horse didn't move. He was still in the same place where she left him. The reins were still on the ground. Bit was still in his mouth. They called the vet. The vet couldn't save him. There was nothing he could do to save him, so they put him down. But the vet he had no explanation for it. He said there is no way somebody could walk in here and do that, and nobody would know it or hear it, or the horse wouldn't put up a fuss. Even when he was treating the horse, and you could see in one picture, he has some clips on veins and stuff to slow the bleeding.
Oh my gosh.
And the horse isn't moving. It just stand there like, okay, whatever.
There's no way it could have been self-inflicted. I mean,
no way.
Impossible.
There's no nails sticking out of wood or anything like that. I mean, there's no sharp edges of anything. It's a riding ring, and there's kids that ride around in their own ponies. So there can't be anything that would hurt the horse or the kids. I mean, it's just a big round room. He said it's about 150 feet one way and 180 feet, I think he said, the other way. So it's just like a big circle. It's all wood paneled walls. They're not, and they're finished panel. It's not like rough cut wood or anything like that. And it just, there stood the horse, butchered. And the horse wasn't putting up a fuss at all, even when the doctor was working on it. He was putting hemostats to close off some of the veins that were cut through. Horse never even whinnied. Didn't do anything.
What on God's green earth would do something like that?
Well, maybe they weren't from God's green earth.
Another question I have for you: when the police get these, let's say the police get a call, right? And I know you're not an officer anymore, or you're retired, or whatever. But I'm curious. Maybe you can enlighten us on this. When police get a call and they go, let's say they go to a scene and something strange is something crazy they can't explain. Do they do ordinary protocol, or do they have to call somebody to keep it under wraps, like contain the situation?
It depends on what it is. A lot of departments have protocols where if there's anything in the sky that shouldn't be there or was reported there, that goes to the nearest Air Force base. If it's something out of the ordinary, let's say with a strange animal, okay, that's reported to the Game Commission. and then in both cases, that stuff disappears. But there are protocols to follow. Now, you may have the oddball officer who won't say anything. He'll just keep it to himself.
Right.
And then when he retires, he might tell somebody over a few beers. But I've had officers that have reported, state officers, state police officers, state troopers, that have reported strange things happening. And I got it in writing.
See, that's what I'm wondering, how some of this stuff slips through the cracks, or how it's held, how it's held so secret, or how it could be so secret,
Well, it's like airline pilots and Air Force pilots are the same thing. They don't, how many things are on YouTube where one pilot's talking to a center, and the center saying, "Do you want to report what you just saw?" And they'll go like, "No, never mind." Because if they do, they'll lose their job.
Wow. Dennis is wanting to know if anybody's taken any fluid samples to be analyzed as of yet. I guess on the horse, I'm assuming.
Yeah, they took all kind of stuff. They took samples, a bunch of photographs, really good photographs, before they put the animal down. Fluid samples came up with nothing. And the bone was actually, in the words of the vet that did the necropsy, said, "I couldn't do it that good."
Better than a surgeon.
Yeah.
Wow. See, that's the thing I'm thinking about. How does the stuff slip through the cracks? I'm really thinking there is some kind of a protocol that calls in some secret government organization. Let's say, for instance, you were out on the job, like I was telling you earlier, another scenario, and we captured, I don't know, a gray alien. You say go to the newspapers, but what if somebody went to the police, and the police, contain this thing? Then who comes after them? The FBI, the CIA? It's hard to tell.
Any one of the alphabet groups. But let's just put it this way. So after I got all the pictures from this guy, okay, and all the reports and everything that he got regarding this horse, and I read everything, looked at the photographs, filed everything away, and I went to call him to thank him, and his phone number was not there anymore. His email address was not there anymore. He wasn't on Facebook or Twitter anymore. He was just gone. I have no contact with him whatsoever.
You think he was approached?
Could have been, sure.
Or he could have been so freaked out that he just didn't want to talk about it anymore,
Exactly what it could. He could just be, enough is enough. He said what he had to say and he's out of here. Or he was just told to, why don't you take a walk?
Yeah, right. Here's some money, take a walk, disappear, get off the internet or something. That's one possibility when I ask you that question of how things get covered up so easily. Because human nature, we can't keep secrets very well. We just can't. But I figured out in the military that they can, and they will. Because I've got family in the military, and there's things that they won't talk about to their wives. Little things,
Yeah. Well, look at that sailor. He took a picture of part of the engine room that he worked in. He got a year in jail.
That's probably, that's what it is too. And then they'll lose their rank and all that stuff. And
he was dishonorably discharged. Now, I guess Trump didn't let him go now, but his life is done. He's not going anywhere.
I wonder if do they consider you? I'm asking you questions probably you don't know about, but I wonder if they consider you an enemy of the state at that point.
Me personally, yeah, pretty sure.
There's someone out there, and I'm not going to name any names, who wants to pull a publicity stunt, talking about they're going to go to Area 51 and charge the gate, right? I'm thinking, I don't think this is either a bad April Fool's joke or that's got to be one of the most ignorant things I've ever heard, because they can take all your rights away for doing that stuff.
They can kill you.
Can't touch a computer. You're considered an enemy of the state. You're considered a terrorist. You probably disappear or kill you. Yeah.
I mean, the sign warns you. Deadly force is authorized. That's all they need to tell you. And that's legal. So let's say you do get past the gate, which is highly unlikely, because two of my guys, morons, tried it, and they were surrounded in a matter of minutes.
Didn't take long, huh?
Nope, just a matter of minutes. One came from the north, one came from the south, and they were right smack in the middle of it. And they gave them the old, let me see your ID, where you're from, what's going on, when were you born, who's your mom, who's your dad, blah, 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 blah. This went on for like an hour and a half. And then they said, get out of here and don't come back. And they did. But, when somebody says to me they're going to go through the fence, and you probably could somewhere along the line, and they're going to do this and they're going to do that, I said, well, let's put it this way. If they don't shoot you, you're going to be arrested and charged, and you're going to Leavenworth or some other federal prison until they forget about that you're even there, depending on what you saw or what you might have seen that they think could get to the public.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the idea is if you charged it with enough people, but I really don't think that's going to matter.
Mm-mm.
I've never believed in any of those old things that, like Art Bell used to have the guy that drove the plane over Area 51. To me, that's just so unrealistic. It can't happen.
Dennis on there just asked, what happened? What about the vet? That's kind of strange, too. The vet with the horse?
Right.
When I sent an email to him, he didn't know anything about what I was talking about, but I had his letterhead envelope when it was sent to me, everything. His report, I have the whole thing, but he didn't know anything about it.
That's incredible. We're going to go a little bit further down the rabbit hole. I'm starting to get a little bit freaked out, but hey, that's expected when we talk to Butch. You guys know Friday the 13th is coming up, and we got one more hour left here on the program. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Butch Witkowski.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised. Want more information about our programming? Check out spacedoutradio.com. You can follow our host, Joe Rube, on Twitter at Lighting the Void. Call in to tonight's show at 501-777-5631. Now, entering the radio ring from Arkansas, Spaced Out Saturday host, Joe Rube.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Saturday. I am your host, Joe Rube. We are here with Butch Witkowski. Man, that's loving this conversation so far. Hey, don't forget, Spaced Out Radio is here for you 7 nights a week. Also, we're on our affiliate stations, WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead, on the UPRN network at 107.7 in New Orleans. We're also on Spreaker under Spaced Out Radio, and we're syndicated with the Fringe FM, which is my home. Next Saturday, we'll be here as well with Mike Vera and Ryan Gable, so that's going to be a good show. Butch, thank you for staying on with us in the third hour. That second hour kind of spooked me a little bit, but you got a show. You got a show coming up next week. Usually, I would never tell someone to go listen to someone else, but you, buddy, I will. I mean, Friday the 13th, you guys got something cool coming up on your radio show, don't you?
Yeah, we're going to have the guests that are on that show are. I'm not going to spill the beans yet, but they are amazing. The information that they're going to put out there especially if you're interested in old cases that are still being conducted today, you will flip out. I mean, everything's recorded now for the 13th for that particular show, but those people were picked out specifically for Friday the 13th.
Yikes! I can only imagine what you guys got planned.
And it's on the Existence of Strange Things out of Memphis Radio, or Radio Memphis rather. And it's a 3-hour show. It goes on at 11 o'clock on a Friday, and it goes till 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning. And the podcast will be available. But it is just super shows. We've been doing some really good stuff. So if anybody has not listened to the Existence of Strange Things, if you want to hear stuff that's even weirder than I am, go to the archives at existenceofstrangethings.com, and they're all there. From human combustion, spontaneous human combustion, to strange little creatures in the woods, to missing persons, just a whole bunch of stuff. It's really good. It's a good show.
Spontaneous human combustion. Boy, that's something I haven't heard in a long time. They're still investigating that, huh?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's really only guy really investigating. It's Larry Arnold. He lives up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I know Larry for a long time. A great investigator. If anybody's interested in his type of work, which is spontaneous human combustion, all over the world, not just here in Pennsylvania, his book is available on Amazon, and it's called Ablaze, Ablaze. It's a thick book. It's got a lot of information in it, a lot of photographs. It's just, if you want to know about spontaneous human combustion, he's your guy, Larry Arnold.
I don't know. I need to talk to him, actually, because I might ask him to come on the show, too, because I've had these weird experiences, because I don't know if you know this, and I haven't talked to you about this, but I'm really big into astral travel and the study of consciousness, especially that stage between sleep and awake. And I have had these moments to where, like, you know how you were talking about you're exhausted and you hadn't had any sleep or anything, like, you know what that feels like, right?
Mm-hmm.
To the point where I'm phasing in and out of sleep, and I'm almost like nodding off, about to get to that paralyzed state, and I feel, and this has happened to me 3 times, I feel intense heat coming over my body, and I don't know if that's just a part of the sleep, being sleep paralyzed, and you're actually feeling your internal temperature, or I don't know what that is, but it freaks you out enough to wake you up. I know that.
Well, that'll be the guy to ask, because he's been studying it now for many, many years.
So if somebody comes in the studio and they see a pile of ash in this chair in front of this microphone, they know what happened. I dozed off and blew up. Not trying to make light of something, but I remember watching Unsolved Mysteries about that when I was a kid, and I can't believe that it's still going on, because I know they debunked it, or so they say they debunked it.
Well, they tried to debunk it, but everybody, like the one, I mean, they really went whole hog on I forget which television. I don't know if it was the History Channel or whoever it was, but they went on a whole hour thing of how they were going to debunk it, right? So they get a pig inside of a warehouse, and they cover the pig in blankets that are soaked in kerosene, and they light the pig up to show that the fat actually burns off and this, that, and the other thing. And the only thing that happened was they started the roof on fire, and the fire company had to come in and save them.
Wow. Oh, wow, man. This stuff is incredible, Butch.
Talk about embarrassing.
Yeah, no doubt.
What happened? We burned the house down.
Right.
Now, although I never got involved in any cases with Larry, I did pick up a case out of Oklahoma, and I sent it to Larry, and he didn't know anything about it, so he, got a hold of the people in Oklahoma, told them who he was, what he does, and they got him out there to Oklahoma, and he was involved in the investigation. And then, just when it started getting, like, the coroner was saying, like, I've never seen anything like this. And the fire chief saying, well, this could be spontaneous human combustion. And that's the last of that was.
Fire chief, huh?
Oh, yeah, they did that investigation heartbeat. They said, oh, he was smoking. Well.
Oh, by the way, I need to tell you guys, too, I got the phone up. I think someone just tried to call, and I don't. My bad. I didn't have the ringer up on my side. But yeah, the number's 501-777-5631. If you guys want to call in and ask Butch any questions, whoever that was, just call back in. Sorry about that. I didn't have the ringer turned up. There we go. that happens, 970 area code. You're on the air with Butch Witkowski. Who are we speaking with?
Hey, this is Tess.
Hey, Tess, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
I'm a little freaked out, but that's the norm when you talk to Butch.
Yeah, pretty normal. Well, my question was, is it really spontaneous combustion, or is it a part of Space Wars? Because when spontaneous combustion started coming out was about the same time, and I really haven't heard anything or any new cases on it. So is it really spontaneous combustion, or was it a part of testing for Space Wars?
You mean like energy weapons? Is that what you mean? Or space weapons, I guess?
Yeah, like satellite energy projection, like energy beams, basically.
These cases go back in time, a long time, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th century. And the latest one was in Oklahoma, and that was about, I think it was last year, the end of last year, where somebody was driving down the street, saw smoke coming out of a house, got a hold of the owner's son who lived close by, and when he went in there, although there was a lot of soot on the ceiling, nothing else was damaged, like chairs and stuff that were close by. Some newspapers that were close by weren't even singed, but he was pretty much burnt to a crisp, just a pile of ashes. So to have that intense heat, and then I'm going to speak on Larry's behalf. When you have that intense heat, that you're talking about the actual cremation of a body, that takes a lot of heat. And for that kind of heat to just destroy a portion of a body, like say from the head down to the belly, and the rest of it's fine. I mean, the socks aren't singed, the pants are still there, the whole 9 yards. But the rest of the body, that's bizarre. Whether it is something inside the body, molecule structure-wise, or a chemical that particular body puts off. I mean, there are people that have spontaneously combusted, and they lived. There's in his book, there's a story of a guy who was very out with his story, where he was getting dressed to go to work, and he was pulling his socks on, and he felt his leg getting hot, and next thing you know, his leg was smoking, and then he saw flame. And his wife was close by, and she threw water on his leg, and it went away. And then he was on his way to the hospital to get that leg treated, and the other leg started doing the same thing, and they didn't know what it was. They had no idea. They had no idea why it happened. It's never happened since. It just happened that one particular day.
So is there any sort of scientific study that shows what exactly causes this? Is it like an energy buildup, or what exactly causes it?
There were a couple studies done, and you know what? Nobody's ever really gave it a cause. They just throw out a lot of scenarios and a lot of information. Like some people say, well, the first one they normally come up with, well, was he a drinker? Okay, so the guy's a drinker, and he smokes a cigarette. Now, how you equate somebody that drinks a lot of booze with a cigarette spontaneously combusts while we're sitting in a chair watching TV is a bit of a stretch for me. Or somebody that's not a drinker, that's a person that doesn't drink, a teetotaler, that does the same thing. And there's some pictures in the book that you look at them, you're going now, how did that happen? Guy's in bed, he's sleeping, next thing you know, he spontaneously combusts. The bed doesn't catch fire. He burns through the bed and through the floor and winds up in the basement, or what's left of him. But there's one picture of a gentleman that self-combusted, and there's a pile of newspapers not 6 inches away from him. They weren't even singed. Now, when you talk about, if you look up on the internet, what type of heat is needed to cremate a human body, to turn it to ash?
Yeah.
The house should have been burned down.
Quite a bit, yeah.
And here's a guy who's sitting in a chair, or the guy that went through the bed and burned through the floor. There's so many cases. The lady that in England, she was in England, and there's one there's a human combustion case here in Pennsylvania. But when you see the condition of the body, and they're not gruesome, okay? I'm not telling anybody to go get freaked out on being gross. You can see the lady laying there, and from the head to her knees, it's gone. It's a pile of ash. There's not a resemblance to a human body there. It's just a pile of ash. But then you look, and from her knees down to her shoes, there's nothing. And she's wearing nylons. You know, the old, like women used to wear back in the 30s and 40s, just pull up to the knee type nylons, you know. And it's amazing. It's just amazing. But this stuff, these cases go way back, and he discusses them in his book. I mean, they go way back. I mean, these where people were actually walking down the street and self-combusted.
Wow. You got any other questions for him, Tess? I got other people. I got to get a multiple line system. I'm sorry, guys.
No worries. No, thanks for clearing that up for me, because for many years I've just always equated it to Star Wars, you know. It just went hand in hand to me because I hadn't heard of these earlier cases, and then I haven't heard of any recently because they're not in the news. Like, nobody's reporting on it that I've seen. But, yeah, thanks for clearing that up for me. That really opens up that space in my mind, you know, keeps me from blocking that. So, gracias.
Yeah, Star Wars is out of the question. They didn't have that back in the 17th century.
Thanks, Tess, for your call.
Thanks, guys.
All right, bye-bye.
You're welcome.
That's awesome. Tess, my number one go-to person. That's one of the Fringe FM team members right there. I got to love that. And that's a good question, you know, because as far as energy weapons and goes and stuff like that, I mean, it sounds far-fetched, but I actually saw a military weapon where they used sound on video last week. And it wasn't sound from speakers. They triangulated it to a point in space, and they used lasers or like plasma. And not only did it was like at 132 dBs, which will blow your eardrums out, but they could talk through it. So if they can do that, there's no telling what they could do.
Oh yeah, I mean, they have stuff that, I mean, Colonel John Alexander, who's big in the UFO field, or a well-known name in the UFO field. I mean, he developed that sound system where, you know, they turn on those microwaves on top of a Hummer, and next thing you know, everybody thinks they're on fire and they're rolling all over the ground screaming. They can't talk. They're basically incapacitated. Where he screwed up was when they had a congressional meeting about this weapon or these types of weapons. One of the senators, they've asked him what happens when all the people are laying on the ground. And he said, well, we shoot them. We kill them. That was the end of that deal.
I bet. But you know what? I got to thinking, and I know Brent was trying to call in and talk about that. So the phone line is open again. It's 501-777-5631. But, you know, we kind of are like a battery, if you think about it. You know, the left side controls the right side controls the left. It's a weird circuitry in the human body, but we have to charge, right? Because if we don't charge, we get sleep deprived, and all kinds of stuff can go wrong.
Yeah, and there's electrical charges going through the body all the time. I mean, if you take a meter, you know, and hold it up against somebody. Now, I'm not talking about somebody with a pacemaker. I'm just talking about, you know, somebody. I mean, you're going to get a reaction on the meter, on the EMF meter, from their clothing, you know, their belt, maybe their shoes or their arm. It doesn't mean they're going to self-combust. But when you see the pictures, they're very compelling. I always tell everybody when they talk about or they ask about spontaneous human combustion, I always say, you got to get this book. You just have to. It's the only book on spontaneous human combustion, the only book ever written. It's a very thick book. I don't know, it's 300 and some pages maybe or more. But it is amazing, the case studies that were done over all these years that he's been doing it.
Well, I kind of believe it. If you take if you take a battery and I guess if it turns too acidic, which our bodies are acid and alkaline as well, maybe if the molecular structure gets off kilter, it could start a fire. I've seen it happen in meth labs all over Arkansas, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, people always say, well, you know, the body's 95% water.
Mm-hmm.
How could that happen? And then I always say, well, you know, a human body has 43% characteristics of a banana. So what's that mean?
Yeah, that's just wild. By the way, I was going to ask you your opinion on this, and I think I already know what your opinion is, but the space wars. And when I say space wars, I think there's an actual space war going on between governments right now and satellites and and things like that. But there's this story that's being told, and it's been told for a while, of the Galactic Federations and Blue Avians and all of these things. And I'm just curious, based on your investigations, if any of your investigations line up with these stories.
No, it's those stories have gone back. Oh my God! At the turn of the century, when we went from the 19th to the 20th century, there was a book written. I can't remember the name of it. You could probably Google a book on Space Wars or something like that. And it was It was a war between the United States and other countries here on the planet Earth against a warlike people from another planet. They never really described the planet, but when you look at where they're saying it's at and everything, it would have been Pluto or Venus, and it was basically a 50-page small book, which back in those days, any little book that you could buy for a nickel was, big time. And but it just carried on over the years. I mean, we have the United States Navy has reptilians and aliens that are actually in United States military in uniforms that actually fight wars in space, and then the Russians have their guys, and it just goes on. It's like a very good version of Star Wars.
Right. 306 area code, you're on the air with Butch Witkowski.
Hello, people. This is Ron calling in.
What's up, brother?
Hey. You're talking about sleep problems. Yes. Oh, yeah. Stress is like the worst thing for sleeping. How to stress down is not very easy. But I'll give you kind of a funny story about ashes, because this is very synchronistic about that for me tonight, because I met a friend today, and he had a wake, a ceremony for his friend that had died. And he was a bit of a pot smoker. And so the friends of the guy decided that, okay, beside his urn, his pot of his ashes, they're going to make have a jar of joints sitting beside him.
Oh, wonderful!
Right, and then they had a jar at the side for whenever, for the people that were smoking the joints, to tip the ashes into the jar. And if you're thinking about, did they mix the ashes with his ashes?
Right.
Yes, they did.
Oh no!
Because it was a symbol of celebration of his life.
That's bizarre.
It wasn't to be stupid. It wasn't to be stupid. It was to be, a very unique idea. So, I've got about 3 seconds left. I'd like to say hello to Kat, Sandra. Ooh, excuse me. Andy. All you guys. Thank you.
All right, thanks for calling, Ron. Appreciate it, brother. I think Ron got a little, either he got emotional or he was choking up there. It sounded like he was getting a little bit of emotional. I think he loves you guys. That was Ron from the Spreaker chat. Pretty interesting call. But yeah, there's the symbology of a funeral ceremony. That's pretty cool. I've never heard of that before. Have you, Butch? Anybody doing it like that?
No, never. No.
Well, we love you, Ron, and I hope that you have a good day too, man. Just we're all here for if you need us. Might have been a good friend of his he was talking about,
Could be, sure.
But what I was thinking is maybe my point was with the sleep deprivation. I'm thinking maybe when you get too tired, Butch, that your chemistry gets off, like a battery that doesn't charge, right? And all of a sudden, because I felt that heat when I was in between states, I felt it. And maybe if you do that too long, there you go. No telling.
But you know what? On the flip side of that, there are people that get, I've heard it in a couple investigations around where people get, I remember when I was a kid and I'd get sick, you get cold, you get the shivers. My mom would say, oh, you got the shiver and shakes, or something like that. And people that have strange nightmares or where they shake so bad that, if they're sleeping with somebody, they wake them up. Or they can barely get out of bed and make it to get to a hot shower. Or get more covers. And it's very intense. And when they feel their hand against their leg or their arm, it's like ice cold. And there's no explanation for that. None.
Yeah. Well, okay. Everything we've talked about is scared the living hell out of me. Now I'm going to walk around all day next day wondering if I don't sleep enough or something ain't right, I could combust at any time, You can't stop that. What are you going to do to stop it? I hope you got some water around or an ice bath.
Carry a fire extinguisher.
I guess you could, but Butch, if somebody wants to be an investigator, right, in this day and age with all of the investigative teams coming out now, there's a bunch, right? I mean, I'm sure you've looked into it.
Yeah.
What's the advice you could give to somebody that was new that says, hey, I want to be a paranormal investigator. I want to investigate UFOs. What are some of the biggest mistakes you think that we make in this field?
The biggest mistakes is they don't read. If you want to get involved in this, let's say you just want to become a ufologist. I mean, that's what you want to study, UFOs. I mean, you grab every book at every library or newspaper clipping or whatever to read where it starts, what happened, what was done, who did it, who investigated it, what was the conclusion, was there any physical evidence, did anybody get hurt? I mean, that's the stuff you have to know first. I mean, it's easy to go up and say to somebody, oh, you want to be a ufologist? Just keep looking in the sky. You'll see something eventually. Well, that doesn't cut it. I mean, because if they see something, they won't know what it is. But if they read in a book somewhere or heard an investigator that does it a lot say, well, if you see something, it should be zigzagging across the sky, very high, very small pinpoint of light that may stop, may drop, may go straight up, may change color, may do this, may do that. Then at least they know what they're looking at. But
right.
Just go out and say, I just saw a UFO. No, you just saw a shooting star.
Gotcha.
Or a bolide, or a meteor. Or I was standing there, I was watching this thing, and it was moving. No, it's not moving. That's a planet. The Earth is moving. You're moving. And you can't believe how many people do not get that through their head. They think that they're stationary and everything else is moving. No.
I think that's happened to me a couple times, actually.
Mars is exactly where it's been. It has not moved. And when and what happens is if you stare at something long enough, I don't care what it is, you can stare at anything long enough, it'll look like it moves. And there's a name for it, and it escapes me right at the moment. But it's amazing how many people say, well, what do I do to do this? And I always say to them, study. Study what you're looking at. What are you going for?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want? Read everything you can get your hands on. I mean, I'm not telling you to go out and buy a ton of books, although that's what I did as an idiot when I wanted to do it, because after my sighting, I just dropped it. I just thought, well, this is a waste of time. And then, I picked up on it. And next thing you know, I got files full of stuff off the printer, off the internet, stuff I printed at the library, books I bought. I mean, it got nuts. And I found out that, once I had the basic knowledge and I could go back in my mind and remember what I read or what I saw or what was said about a certain sighting or what the evidence that was found, that kind of stuff. It all came much easier when I was doing investigations.
Right.
You have to learn what you're looking at.
Gotcha.
If somebody wants to be a cryptozoologist, I mean, they're not going to study UFOs. They're going to, they're going to look at Dr. Bendelnagel's work or guys that have been in the field for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. That's the guys you want to learn from.
Right.
And then just add that to your repertoire, and you're ready to rock and roll.
Right. 36 area code. You're on the air with Butch Witkowski.
Yeah. Hi. How y'all doing?
Hey, who are we speaking with?
This is Brent.
Hey, Brent, how are you?
Not bad, thank you. Yourself?
Good, I'm great. I'm wonderful. I'm talking to Butch. It's great. We're having a good time.
This is true. Very true. Yeah, first off, happy birthday.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hope it's going great for you.
Oh, yeah, it is, definitely.
Right on. Do you mind if I cut back to the werewolf and all that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know if you typed it in the Spreaker chat, and hello to Spreaker chat room. I had to type it in there that I kind of, when I was basically going through exercises for classes, in the astral classes, I don't know where I was, but I ended up, I guess you could say, floating over one area, and there was actually a werewolf there. But I got I had no fear or no, feelings of any sort. It was just like, what are you doing here, kind of thing.
Did it recognize you in the astral realm? Did it see you?
Yeah, it was looking at me. It was kind of, I moved to see if it would follow me, and yeah, it followed me, and I was just like, what are you doing here? I'm not supposed to be seeing you. I'm supposed to be, doing whatever I was doing.
Well,
so I was
that's
kind of
cool.
wondering if they kind of do the same thing physically.
So I guess you're asking, you saw one in the astral realm and it really didn't induce fear, but physically, I guess he's asking Butch, does it always induce fear on people every time they see, a cryptid or a dog man or some sort?
Every I can only speak for the cases we had. Every case that we had, yes. And then we had, I think there was 51 historical cases that we found where some people were injured, some people turned up missing, that kind of stuff, but not anybody that was on an astral plane that had anything to say. It was always a head-on, face-to-face type thing, or a run-in, or a drive-by, or something like that, where the creature is seen. The one that comes to mind that is very weird to me is that there's 4 ladies up in, it would be north central Pennsylvania, way north. And every Saturday morning for about a year, I guess for their health, they're in their 40s and stuff, they would go to this park, and they would park the car in a lot, and they would walk the parking area, which was pretty much a mile long and back. That was their walk. I mean, that was their healthy thing for the day. Right. And as they were pulling in that particular morning, the one lady went, like, what's that? And there it stood right outside the tree line, just staring at them. And she thought she was like hallucinating, and she said, do you see what I see? And then she stopped the car. The driver stopped the car, looked over and said, we're out of here. And, turned the car around and left. And she goes back and she tells her husband the story. Well, he thinks they've been out drinking, but he doesn't smell any booze. So he jumps in the car. And he heads out there. And as he's pulling up, he thought, he didn't say he was positive, but he thought he saw a large wolf peering out of the trees, and that's when he turned around and left. So I think, although all the cases are close in how they take place and where they take place, they've always taken place within our Lichen Loop. So that means they're within a certain area. They've not ventured outside that area. Now, is that their habitat? But when we did the historical backgrounds on these cases, they were all over the state. There were some in the east, some in the northwest, some in the northeast, some in the south, some in the west. Right. But the majority of them are in the south, in the north central and south central Pennsylvania, running from New York way up to the Pennsylvania line.
Brent, you're an average. I guess you do a lot of astral traveling, a lot, right? What else have you noticed in the astral realms that we've talked about tonight?
Well, I've battled aliens. I've passed spirits, blasted them.
You battle them?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, okay.
I've torched a few aliens and...
Right on. I guess I don't know what you're referring to by battling them. Maybe like you get in fights with them in the astral realm. Is that it?
Yes. Yes, they were after. Actually, she was a case. It was a pretty big case, really, and she's. I think she had over 13 implants or something like that.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if they were all from the same race or whatever, but she had quite a few implants, and I know of. I'm pretty sure I saw 3 there in that battle.
Okay.
And we just killed a bunch of them, and I know we let one race live because it was a friendly kind.
Gotcha. Well,
yeah.
Interesting stuff there, brother. I appreciate you calling in. Great call.
Yeah, not a problem. I appreciate the answer, and it helped me out.
Right on. Thanks, Brent. Thanks for calling in.
All right, thank you much.
Bye-bye.
And you're welcome. And
whoops, I cut him off there towards the end. Sorry about that. I thought he was done. You guys can't trick me like that. When you say thank you very much and bye, I got to hang up. Sorry about that, Brent. What about implants? You ever had people to talk to you about that?
Oh, yeah.
They got implants, right? Have they showed them to you on x-rays or let you feel them or anything like that?
Yeah, all the above. Actually, the one that was the most interesting turned out to be a steel splinter that the guy probably got when he was very young and never knew it until as he got older it started to fester as it was trying to get out of the body. And just like a splinter, if you leave a splinter alone long enough and you keep just squeezing at it, it'll work its way out. And he had it in a jar, and we had it analyzed, and it was actually a steel splinter. And he did work as a kid when he was like 16, 17. On the weekends, he worked at a scrapyard where they had a shredder, and a splinter probably hit him, and it was that sharp that he didn't even know he got hit. And there's been a lot of interesting stuff done with implants, and they are what they are. I mean, some have been actually broken when they were removed from the body and put away in a refrigerator under lock and key, and the next day they go in to take a look at it, do some more micro work and stuff like that, and they've grown back together. That's bizarre.
Yeah, I remember when I talked to Whitley Strieber. I think it was off the air. We were discussing some things, and I asked him about the implant, and it was according to him, some of them will even move away from the surgeons, like while the surgeons are trying to get them to an area where if they go down and try to cut it out, it would really hurt the patient, almost like they're aware.
Well, that's happened in cattle mutilations too, where an investigator was got a high EMF reading at the chest area of a cow that was mutilated, and the other investigator that was there happened to have a handheld metal detector, and this thing started moving around the body, went up into the head, and then it went down the other side, and then went down to the hind quarter, and then it just vanished. But it was there.
What about children, Butch? Do you get cases of a lot of things having to do with children?
No, never had one. Nope.
I wonder about that sometimes because as a child I had a lot of crazy experiences, and I think it has to do with their parents just kind of writing it off to their imaginations, maybe.
Well, that, and look at now. I grew up in the Count Dracula and Frankenstein versus this guy and that guy. I mean, that was the era I grew up in. But now, I look at some of the stuff that they have on in these movies. It scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
I mean,
it does.
I remember when I saw the first Alien movie. There were a couple parts in that movie where I just backed up into my chair and went like, "Whoa."
Yeah. Do you ever run into any? And I'm gonna upset some people here, but when you talk to some of these people that have encounters, do they talk about things of an occult nature, like rituals or symbols or maybe sigils laying around, stuff like that?
Over the years, we've had a couple. A case that, again, started out as a UFO case, again, near my home, even closer this time. And the guy did have a great picture of a triangle. And then he said, "Come on in." And, I walked in that house, and the minute I hit that step, I knew I shouldn't have been there. I just had a bad feeling. And I walk in. Now this is what you see when you walk into a house. Now you tell me how you feel. The first thing your eyes hit is that on every wall there's a crucifix. And then on every wall, with the exception of one or two, out of the whole house, has a picture of the Inquisition. On every table, there is some type of an ashtray or a coaster or a pitcher, like a drinking pitcher, or a candlestick that has a face of Satan on it. What's that tell you?
Tells me tells me they're not. This just isn't an ordinary get together here. This wasn't just to have a few beers and watch the Super Bowl. I'm getting out of there.
And then they start telling me about the strange things, showing me some photographs that were taken, and I said, and then they turned out to be collectors of the macabre. So all the crucifixes that were on the wall were off of coffins. There was a coffin in the attic. There was jars of dirt that were taken from freshly dug graves. There were some voodoo stuff. And then I said to him, I said, well, is there something, right away I started thinking there's some kind of infestation. So I said, did you bring anything into the house lately that you bought at one of these sales? Well, there is one piece. And we don't keep it in the house. I said, well, where is that? It's just locked up in the trunk of the car. And I said, why don't you bring it in the house? Because bad things happen when we bring it in the house. I said, can I see it? And he said, you really want to see it? I said, yeah. So he came in with a Haitian voodoo death mask.
Oh, my gosh.
Which was made out of real skin that had real goat horns on it, very ornately painted. And I photographed it and looked at it, and I said, you can get it out of here anytime you want. He ran out of the house with it and put it back in the truck, in the trunk of the car. I think he self-committed himself a little while ago. I haven't heard anything back from him for a long time, but the last pictures he sent to me, he said these two entities are at the door from the living room to the kitchen. And now they do have a little boy, but the kid's like 2 years old. He don't even walk. And he said, I tried to take a picture of them, but every time I take a picture of them, they don't show up on the camera. And I went like, okay. And he said, I went upstairs and got my wife's dressing mirror, and I put that up against the counter, and they're in the mirror, and I took the picture, and I got them. And he sent me that picture, and I don't know what they are. I have no idea what they are. There's two entities. One's a little taller than the other. I'd say one the size of the gate because I had to walk over it to get to the kitchen. I'm going to say one might be maybe 4 foot, and the other one might be 3 foot difference.
What do you mean? Were they just blurry, or what did they look like?
No, they're very they're all very dark, black. You can see eyes, sort of. You can see a little eye shine. There's no making of hair or facial features or anything like that. You can see arms and legs, and that's about it. But they were there. He took pictures of that gate, or looking from the kitchen to that gate. It's just a child-proof gate. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And he took a series of pictures, and he showed me those, and sent me those, and they're blank. And then he did the one in the mirror, and there they are. He doesn't have any dogs, no pets in the house. Just a little 2-year-old and his wife, and she's about 5'8", so it wasn't her. But there's these two little, whatever the hell they are, right there at the gate, looking at him.
So do you get involved with this kind of stuff at all? The clearing of the house, or the spiritual people that do the sage and all of that?
No, they had that done. They had the Catholic Church send over a priest twice. They did a blessing, and he had somebody else come in and do the clearing. But I wasn't there for that. I was there for a UFO sighting report.
Right.
I was there to look at pictures of a triangle that he took, which I saw. And I looked I worked on the pictures. They are what they are. And I've had, in that particular area, there have been, I think over a 3-year period, there were 6 triangle reports. He was the 6th one. And then when he invited me in the house, I mean, the minute I stepped on the front porch, I had a bad feeling like, maybe I'll go home early. But I walked in, and I mean, I photographed everything I could. I mean, every little knick-knack, he had a voodoo, what they call a blood cup, where they sacrifice a chicken into a cup. It looks like a chalice, but it's got bells on it. He had one of those. This guy had some weird. He had a tarot deck of cards, like they were, the date of manufacture was like 1804. I mean, it was just some weird stuff, man. And I just I think I'm going to take this case to somebody else.
Right.
And then when I got back to him a few weeks after that, he didn't want to talk about it. And then he pretty much disappeared. And then I did run into his wife at a grocery store, and she said he committed himself. He just couldn't take it anymore.
Trippin said Butch weenied out. Yeah, I probably don't blame you.
I want to tell you something. If I would have known what was in that house when I walked into it, like the jars of dirt, the coffin, all that stuff, you know, I would have been my picture would have been on Sports Illustrated, the fastest Polish boy in the world, because I would have ran over my truck to get out of there. It was a very eerie place to be, and it was bizarre. I mean, the stuff they collected, I mean, what did they expect? You know, I can't imagine somebody would collect that kind of stuff and not think that anything could be attached to it. A voodoo death mask? What are you, crazy?
Well, I guess I can reveal this. I'm pretty studied when it comes to occult stuff. And matter of fact, I'm going to be working on a presentation for Forest Moon Paranormal about occult symbolism. I can tell you full well that even the people that practice hoodoo and voodoo know that they know exactly how powerful those things are. A lot of them wouldn't touch them themselves.
On the coffee table, she had a book, the Malleus Maleficaris, which is was brought out during the Inquisition. Basically, told you how to torture people to get the information out of them.
Yeah, that's bad.
And I looked at it, and she said, "Yeah, it's very old. It was my mother's." And then she proceeds to tell me her mother was a witch. And she opens it up. She says, "See the date?" And the date in it is first of all, the handwriting is pretty much indistinguishable. But when you look at the date, you can see why. The date was 1530.
Whoa, really?
I said, "Do you really want to keep this in your house?"
That's a relic.
And, yeah. She said, "Well, I took it to the Catholic Church to have it destroyed, but they won't touch it."
No, they know better.
I went whoa, this is out of my realm.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I'm just going to tell you, Butch, that there's a lot of, in the occult, it's not really a black or white type thing. There's a lot of good stuff in there. That's why the secret societies have kept it so secret, and even Catholic priests like Eliphas Levi studied it and kept it. There's a reason why they keep it secret, because once that knowledge gets out, people, I would say, of a dumber nature, and I'm just going to say dumb nature, get their hands on this stuff, and the first thing they turn to is the dark side. And it's incredible. They do it every time.
So then you think that the wife having the Eye of Horus tattooed across her forehead would be strange?
Well, yeah. I mean, the Eye of Horus isn't exactly a bad symbol, but when you tattoo it on your forehead, that is a little weird if you ask me.
Or the husband had the Illuminati Illuminati pyramid on his neck from his ear down to his chest. What would
entice you to do that? And even if you study the old Rosicrucian text, when they started getting into that, they specifically said, look, don't do anything stupid. Don't wear tattoos. Don't dress up gothy. Don't do just, be in society, wear normal stuff, look normal. And I'm not trying to be a prude here, but it doesn't gain. I'll just put it to you this way. For the people that do study the occult and are trying to practice the white arts of magic and things, if you're out doing these things in the public, I can tell you flat out, when you wear certain things or look certain ways, yeah, people are going to judge you. Does that mean it's wrong? Sure, it's wrong, but that's what happens. And so all the good people that are studying this stuff, they get drugged through the mud, and that's happened since the Renaissance.
Well, I think just the idea that I knew a little bit about what I was looking at, okay, and where I picked that information up over time, I have no idea. But
right.
The stuff I recognized right away, whether I saw it in a movie or read it in a book or read it through somebody else's investigation, I mean, just walking into the house, how many people do you know have pictures of the Inquisition hanging on their walls?
Nobody. I don't know anybody that has that. Butch?
Or a crucifix from a coffin on every wall. Or everything that's around you on tables and coffee tables, end tables, kitchen tables, TV tables, has a picture of a demon on it or a devil.
Well, at least they weren't upside down, right? Or were they?
One was. It was on a drinking. Looked like probably an old wine pitcher or something, a metal pitcher. Might have been for water or wine or something like that. That was upside down.
But you got to write a book. Have you wrote a book yet?
No, I'm never going to write a book.
That's too much work, right? All the stuff you've seen.
It's I'm too old to do that. I mean, I have so many things going on with investigations and trying to find out, my hunt for the truth to get to an ending, which will probably never happen, but at least I'll try. And it takes up so much time. When I retired, I thought, well, I could devote a couple hours a week to this stuff. Well, I work more now than I did when I was working. Since I'm retired, I mean, I'll get in the office here. It depends how late I'm up, but 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I don't leave here till like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, people see me on Facebook. They go, "Are you still up?"
Yeah, I see. I've seen you on Facebook, and it shows the little green dot. I'm like, man, Butch is up. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, but it's at the point where somebody that deals in what these folks deal in, although they said they make a lot of money at it, and that was quite obvious. They have a Hummer and a Lincoln Continental in their driveway, not a Continental, but a Lincoln. They take this stuff and they buy it at sales where funeral homes are going out of business, or collectors that collect this kind of stuff are going out of business. They take it to New York, and they said they'll take a truckload to New York and sell out in an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Wow.
And I'm going like, I'm going to stay out of New York.
Now, have you ever investigated a scene that had like hot foot powder thrown on the ground, where they, how they throw that foot powder down to try to? No. Yeah, they do that too. But I've also heard of other people trying to throw like baby powder on the floor or whatever to see if they get footprints from spirits too. I think that's, does that work? I'll
tell you what has been tried, and it made sense to me after a while, after I thought about it. But there was a cave entrance, and now it was not in Pennsylvania, I believe it was Ohio, where people were saying that strange things were going in and out of the cave. But the cave was kind of rocky, it wasn't like a gravel or dirt going into it, and inside it was more rocky than anything else, but flat rock, you know what I'm saying? Like you could walk over it. It wasn't like big boulders. And this investigator got brown flour, a 5-pound bag, and put it in a sifter and walked around and covered the whole entrance with this brown powder, this brown flour. And he got all kind of footprints, but they were mainly known animals. But it was a pretty good idea. I'm thinking to myself, well, why don't these Bigfoot guys do that when they get a trail? Instead of standing there running down the trail with a torch in the middle of the night, screaming at the top of their lungs and whacking on trees. Why can't they just, spread some powder around? I mean, even in forensics, there's different types of powders you can use where you could spray a trail with just a, spray bottle. Just spray the leaves around a trail, opening into a trail in the ground, and if anything walks past it, it's luminescence. So all you need is a black light. Shine the black light down. You can see a footprint or where they brushed up against the trees or anything like that.
Wow. Tricks that Butch knows. That's pretty cool. You got any apprentices you're training in this field right now?
Yeah, me. I learn something new every day. I learn something new, or I try something.
Now, on your website, it has, I was reading some of the posts, and what an incredible resource, especially you got a blog there. I mean, it's really, I can't even put words to it. It's a website I wish that I had for my website on Lighting the Void, but I was going to look at some things, and it said you got to be a member to be on the newsletter. Are you still doing that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how do we become? How do they do that? How do they become a member?
Well, once they've been accepted into the group, you know, the background is a big thing. You know, what kind of background do you have? What do you bring to the group? Not what we can bring to you, but what do you bring to us?
Right.
And basically, it is a you know, the sharing of information. In all these years, since 2009, I only ever got rid of one person. One. And it's because he just went off the wall. I mean, the guy was nuts. But when I was talking to him, he seemed really good, knew what he was talking about, and then he went deep into the world of the unknown. And I thought, this is not good. So I just told him, sorry, we can't use you. But the newsletter basically covers oddball stuff that happens that we want to share. But even at that point, it's either a personal email from me or a phone call when I have something, because I can get more. Typing a letter is really hard for me because I start to go off where I shouldn't even be going. So it's a whole lot easier for me to call up and say, hey, look, you know, I got this guy that says he disappeared into a vortex at 3 o'clock in the morning coming out of a bar. But it happened to him before, and it happened in Tallahassee, Florida, and you live in Tallahassee. Is there such a bar named that in Tallahassee? And they say, no. So, you know, that kind of stuff where you can bounce. The hardest part of investigating this stuff is bouncing it off people that are doing it, or that have the background that you can trust what they give you as an answer. Like, we have one person that has really, over a long period of time, studied out-of-body experiences and stuff like that, and actually does work for the Florida Highway Patrol as an empath. And the couple of times that I've gotten involved with cases that had that, I, you know, contacted that person, and they gave me all the information I needed, which helped a great deal. But without that person, I wouldn't have been able to go any further than I was with that case. So that's the good thing, where, you know, a small group of dedicated researchers can really work together and get an answer and get stuff rolling. I mean, I could have sat here and struggled for days, maybe weeks, trying to figure that out, and I had that answer within a matter of a couple minutes. So that's a real plus. And there's not many groups out there that do that share information. I'll share information with any group. I don't care. But, I mean, there's some groups where you share information, man, you're out. They throw your butt right out the door.
Yeah, that's the last question I'm going to ask you tonight before we wrap up. What is the main reason why an organization like, in your opinion, or maybe that you know, an organization like MUFON would keep certain cases not known to the public?
I guess the first thing would be they don't do anything with it. I mean, it's taken by a research, I mean, by an investigator, and it goes in the CMS file, and that's it.
Yeah, it just seems like they're hiding stuff in there to me, but maybe it's not a credible case. I don't know.
And that could be. It could be both. I mean, it could be a credible case, it could be not a credible case. But for years and years, people kept saying about how they put cases into CMS and the cases disappear. You know, I never dove into that.
Right.
So I really don't know what they're doing, but I do know this. If you share information from MUFON with another group on the outside, you're pretty much going to be done.
Right.
If not done right away, you'll be done shortly.
Butch, it's been an incredible conversation tonight. I've had such a blast. Tell everybody real quick, because before we roll out of here, how they can find you on the web.
Well, they can find me on the web by going to uforcop.com. That's the web page. Or they can get me on Facebook under the UFO Research Center, Pennsylvania, or my name, Butch Witkowski, my personal page. Or they can catch me on the existence of Strange Things on Radio Memphis every Friday night.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming out. You just hang out for a second. I really appreciate you coming out on my birthday show, man. I couldn't have picked a better person. I really appreciate it, Butch.
Thank you. I hope you have a good birthday.
Thanks. All right, guys, hang out for a second there, Butch. We're going to get out of here. Don't forget, Spaced Out Radio is here for you 7 nights a week. If you're still listening and you want to catch some more talk radio, just hang out. S4 is coming up next. You can listen to there on the Fringe FM or spacedoutradio.com or on Spreaker. We'll see you guys next weekend.
Looking for a path to follow in the dark.